Take it from the top.
From the top. Thankfully, we were only like 5 minutes in.
We just got to the intro, so.
Yep. All right. Are you going to work? Yes. All right. It is going live to Facebook now. Oh, I just realized I had a typo in my title, but I don't care. All right. That is good to go. Let's just edit that typo. Oh, no, it doesn't let you. Okay, cool. Whatever. We're living with audio issues F, not fixed. Okay, share that to that group page. And then we're basically good. Yeah, sorry about that. Whatever you do not let Windows update for you. And don't sign up for the frigging creators update. That has wrecked me twice now.
That thing is horrible.
I actually already have it.
I do have it, but thankfully it didn't break anything for me. But yeah,
that's the second time in 2 years that it has destroyed my audio.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you ready to start the official audio downloadable podcast version?
Let's hope so. All right. I think it's good. What I'm going to do, so stream, you're about to get double audio for just a little bit. I'm going to check the Twitch page manually just to make sure it doesn't sound like ass.
I'm listening to it on Facebook and it sounds good.
Okay, I checked the Twitch page. Yep, and it's good, Donna. So we are good to go. Sorry about that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest / greatest episode of Gaming Fix, the first best podcast recorded by 6 people internationally who met on the internet.
Not true.
I am your
ASL.
I am your British strong style champion, Sam.
It's not a thing.
It is a thing.
God,
Is it a thing?
Yeah.
God, I hate wrestling.
Done. Tyler
Wrestling's
Bate.
terrible.
Trent Seven.
We have the hell in a cell of Windows updates with Alex.
Dude, let's not get started on Windows right now. Fuck them.
Hardcore champion Allison.
I still don't know anything about wrestling, so
I thought we weren't. Never mind. Let's leave that one.
New Japan heavyweight champion Andre.
Fix.spaces the place. Oh yeah, brother.
Our commissioner Erica.
That's me.
And the color commentator Pat.
Okay, I could do that. I can get down with that.
you'll settle for that.
Yeah.
Better than most ways.
For those of you in the know or not in the know, this is the second version of this intro we've recorded as we had audio issues, and I had time to polish up my introductions and didn't. Today, we're going to be running through the latest and greatest games to be released on multiple platforms, and we're going to talk a little bit about the ones that we have played. Everybody has brought one game this week with which to discuss. One of them is even a surprise to me, which I'm excited about. After that, we're going to have this week's quiz. I do still need to go back and update the scoring because I miscounted last week, but we will get it done. I will actually listen through and do it. I was on holiday this week, as many of you who follow me on Facebook or whatever you will know.
Yeah, you can't see it on the stream right now, but he's wearing like one of those leis, and he's got this Hawaiian shirt, and he's got like a big old pineapple.
Hat.
Yeah, fruit hat on his head.
I did buy this jumper on holiday. It's a nice knit. And I have a NASA t-shirt on, I think. Yeah, NASA. There we go.
Lift your shirt up at us.
I just
What are you wearing?
A Jack Jones cable knit. No way, that wasn't a serious question. After the quiz, after the quiz, we've got this month's review item, which is Wrestle Kingdom 12, this year's New Japan Pro Wrestling Super Bowl WrestleMania Big Dog event thing.
Yes.
Big dog
We
event.
have-
Yeah. That's what they call
I
it.
didn't see Roman Reigns there.
We have all watched it. And although I won't be able to stay the whole time to give my thoughts on the entire thing, because due to audio issues, recording about an hour later, I do, however, have some cool things to say, hopefully, about it at the beginning. So first off, let's talk about what Andre was talking about. Oh yeah, what you been playing, brother?
Don't encourage him.
Oh.
Andre, I do encourage you to keep up that voice for the entire episode,
No.
including the quiz and the game.
Shutting
section.
this down.
The
Vetoed.
cream of the crop will rise to the top.
Oh,
Oh
jeez.
yeah. Snap into a
Speaking
Slim
of-
Jim.
Speaking of the cream of the crop, Alison, what have you been playing?
Oh, okay. I've had a pretty light gaming week, honestly. I've been busy at work, and then also I've been sick for the entire week, so I've been kind of having to alternate going to work and then probably sleeping, mostly sleeping. So I've been playing more of Chrono Trigger, which I'm really liking, but I've been also playing Pokemon Fire Red, because that is such like a super comfy game for me right now. And it's like the type of thing where when I'm sick, I just want to do something that feels super comfortable. So I've been playing that. It's interesting going back to something that's that old, mostly because like you start noticing all the little quality of life improvements they've made over the years. And I mean, it's still a good game, but like getting through Mountain Moon and the rock tunnel was like extremely tedious. And getting through like one of the rocket bases I just finished before the stream, and I was like, there's 11 floors with several people on each floor that I all have to fight, and there's like no space in between these. It's a lot like more tedious. I feel like they definitely figured out later how to best pace this game, because this is not necessarily the best paced game ever, but it's Pokemon Blue is the first game I ever played, so this is a very nostalgic trip back for me.
Did you play Soul Silver in those when they came out?
Yeah, I did.
Those
Yeah.
are the best ones.
I think
Hands
those were,
down.
yeah. I think of the remakes
Gen-
they did, those might have been the strongest.
Yeah, I'd
Not even
agree.
a remake.
And Gen 2 is my favorite generation. Pokemon Gold and Heart Gold are my favorite Pokemon games. So I feel like they have enough quality of life increases that like there's a lot, like the leap from Pokemon Gen 1 to Gen 2 was just like is almost astonishing how many things they added and improved upon. And then also just going from the original Gold to the DS.
Ruby and Sapphire.
Yeah. Go like, well, not Ruby and Sapphire, but to the engine that they're using for the DS, it works really well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking GBA.
But GBA is good
Yeah.
too, because that's what I've been playing on, which is very,
Yeah.
which is also very nostalgic for me.
Best handheld console.
I'm a fan. I've actually found a bunch of my old Game Boy Advance games, and I've been playing them on and off for the past couple of weeks. And I'm like, this is a good system. There's a lot of good games on this system, and I'm glad that I own some of these games because, for example, I looked up how much my Fire Emblem carts can go for, and it is a lot of money. So glad that I bought them back in the day instead of now.
So you're saying the GBA is the best handheld system? What if I spread to you the good word of the PlayStation Vita?
I only
better system than PS Vita.
So the GBA is like a perfect system.
Yes. There's
only-
nothing
the only-
wrong with the Game Boy Advance.
The only thing wrong with it is it could have 2 more buttons. But it's fine.
That would be
with
really
2
nice if it had
buttons.
2 more buttons and it could play like every SNES game on it. That would be amazing.
Do we? Sorry.
But this thing is like, honestly, this is a really well lasting system too, because I pulled out my old Game Boy Advance and or I pulled my sibling's old one out rather, and I turned it on, and it still had battery after maybe 8+ years of not being turned on.
It's impressive.
It still had like battery in there. And I went to my friend's apartment and I told her about that too. And so she found her old Game Boy Advance and turned it on, and it still had battery.
Is this an SP or just a regular?
Yeah, SP.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
OG GBA didn't have a rechargeable battery.
Yeah, because I had that's the one I had, but I don't know where it is. So I'm using my sibling's one, but it's like, it was kind of amazing. Just like, wait, this hasn't been turned on in years, and yet it still has enough battery life to play a little bit of a game. This is kind of amazing.
Yeah, same.
My 3DS, sometimes if I turn it off at night, it won't turn on again in the morning. Like the battery, if I put it to sleep at night, the battery won't last the night.
Yep.
Whereas the Vita battery life is insane. I left my Vita in a drawer for about 6 months between game releases and pulled it out, and it had like 75% charge.
It's pretty impressive, actually.
I like my Vita a lot, but I bought it specifically for like when I used to have a very long commute on a bus, and the screen is really bad outdoors. Like it just the glare on it is horrific.
Did you have the original Vita with the OLED, or the OLED rather, or the updated Vita that they changed it to like an LCD?
Was it skinny or fat?
I don't know the comparison between the two. It has rounded edges. I bought it in Japan actually on my honeymoon.
That sounds like a version 2 to me.
Yeah. It does have a noticeably crappier screen. But
this is not great.
if we're talking, okay, this is maybe a discussion for another time, but if we're talking about greatest handhelds, do we count the Switch?
If we do, then the Switch wins.
Yeah.
It's a home console that you can take with you. That's Nintendo style.
I was looking at this online because for some reason I was like, I'm gonna look up all these console sales because I was bored, and they listed as a hybrid console. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It is not as simple and like portable as like a GBA.
That's true. It's
like the GBA is perfect.
Taking this SP with me, it's like it's small, but it's easy. It's the screen's still not terrible, and I've actually been considering at a game store near me. They have a modded GBA that has like actually a backlit screen, but it's an original GBA, has better buttons, better everything. And I'm like, I'm really tempted to get it. It's $160, which is a lot for a Game Boy Advance, but yeah, I kind of want it.
Mm-hmm.
If they put a rechargeable battery in there, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if they do. I'd have to ask them. And if it had a rechargeable battery, that might be it, and I'd have to get it.
Yeah, Pokemon's pretty great though.
Pokemon is pretty great. It's I feel great about it being my first game ever because it's a type of game where I feel like I have so much like residual like knowledge of Pokemon in my head that playing one of those games is really straightforward. But I feel like if you're picking it up for the first time, you're like, wait, I have to pay attention to how many different type combinations and moves and everything.
People get really deep with that stuff, like high level Pokemon.
Oh my god, it's crazy.
It's insane.
Occasionally I look that up and it's amazing. And then there's also all the like super rare things that you can do too, like people who look for shinies. And then also apparently there's the thing I found out recently is that there's a Pokemon virus that only like that is super rare to get.
Yep. And it can be transferred. The first time I played Pokemon Silver, I think, I was going through, I think it was Viridian Forest, and I ran into a Pikachu and it looked all fucked. And I was like, what's up with it? I'm just going to kill it. I didn't know. Turns out it was a shiny. It was like one of the rarest shinies. And I found out years later that's what it was. And I just was so sad.
Oh, I love that your first instinct is like, oh, this is a fucked up looking Pikachu. Time to kill it.
Yeah, like, how were you not like, I need to catch this thing?
Yeah.
I don't think I meant to, but I think I ended up doing it. And it gave a lot of XP. And I was like, oh, all right, that's cool.
Speaking of giving a lot of XP, Andre, what have you been playing this week?
Well, since I was keeping with the theme of Wrestle Kingdom 12, so I brought an anime fighting game. I'm giving the people what they want, what they come to this podcast for. I have been depriving them.
Oh no.
We're gonna talk about Dragon Ball.
Oh no.
Pat, what have you been playing? Pat?
So,
No.
are we talking about the end of Dragon Ball Super? Are we going to just spoil that right now?
The end of Dragon Ball Super is like awesome. Like it kind of goes on for like a really long time. So like 4 minutes left, and then there's like 6 more episodes, and like this is like 2 hours. What are you doing?
We're gonna talk about Dragon Ball Budokai 3.
That's a good game. I fuck with that. The DLC, the first DLC for Dragon Ball Fighters, dropped with Bardock, or AKA Dad Goku, and Brawly, AKA Green Goku, dropped, and it's pretty good. Bardock is really cool and kind of like the perfect character for me. He goes Super Saiyan, which I didn't know he could do. Apparently that's in like a spin-off thing where he like goes back in time and then goes Super Saiyan and beats like Frieza's ancestor in a fight. And then that's why Frieza's scared of Super Saiyans, apparently. Dragon Ball's weird.
It seems like a lot.
Yeah, but it is really cool. The rest of the DLC leaked, and I'm kind of disappointed in there have been leaks leading up to now, but now there's like data mining from the PC version of the game, and it's basically confirmed at this point. And there are like multiple characters where I'm like, how are you not going to put this person in the game? Like, it's such a slam dunk with like people from Super who should totally be in there. And there's no Mr. Satan on the list. Like,
what about Mr. Popo?
Not interested.
Mr. Popo does not fight.
He bounces a lot.
He just stares menacingly at people and is like, if you destroy the time chamber again, you will be banned. Mr. Popo is a problem. But blackface is a problem in Japan. Yeah, but we won't get into that. But the DLC is pretty good. Brawly, not for me. I don't. He's like a big armored command grab character, and I can never figure out like why I'm getting hit by command grabs, but I can't hit other people with command grabs. But I've had some fun getting back into ranked and messing around. So
I was like I watched a Twitch stream this like yesterday of actually it was the guy who won the tournament that was in the fighting game fans for fist, the giant bomb fans for fist. I'm an admin of that group now, by the way. They made me an admin of a fighting game group, which is crazy to me. But it's like I was watching him, mess around with the Brawly and Bardock, and it's just like I can't wait until my thumb doesn't hurt enough to like get back into that game. And when it does, everybody's gonna be so much better than I am. I'm not gonna be able to play.
I had one fight where like a person just kept getting like a perfect like combo on me and like just bouncing me all around, and they were like doing it flawlessly every time. I'm like, what the fuck? Not fun. And I basically just kept putting the controller down, walking away.
Yeah, that game's still super cool.
But besides that, it's still a good game.
I can't get into anime fighters. I like my Street Fighter. I like the one-on-one. I like knowing exactly what's happening.
You can have one-on-one anime fighters.
What about Persona 4 Arena?
That game's real good.
I bought Persona 4 Arena 3 times and have never played it. I have 2 copies in shrink wrap in my house.
What?
Well,
That's amazing.
Visual novel. That's a fighting game.
Yep.
You can play as Chie. She's got a good kick. It's like an instant. You can do galactic punt, and it's just an instant kill.
What if it wasn't a fighting game, but it was a rhythm game, and it was on Vita?
Teddy puts his enemies inside his persona, and then it explodes. It's a good game.
Good game.
Speaking of good games,
Persona 5 Arena.
Yeah, that would be a good game. Erica, what have you been playing?
Oh, I'm about to shit on this game.
Good games.
Yeah, so I have been really busy this week, so I didn't really have time to like sit down and play a game, but I decided to at work play a game that I have started and stopped a bunch of times, which is The Room Pocket, which is just the phone version of The Room.
Wasn't it on the phones first?
It was on
It was on
iPad
iPad
first,
only.
and then there was
Yeah.
Pocket, which is just better optimized for the smaller screen, I think. So it's a game that I've opened it a few times and I've played through like the tutorial and like chapter 1 a bunch, and then I bought it a while ago, played through chapter 2 and then fell off of it again, and then I just decided to start over and play through it. And I don't think it's a bad game, but I don't think it's great. Like, it looks really beautiful, especially considering it's not a very new game. I think it came out in 2012. And it's just not, it just doesn't do it for me. It's like, it holds my hand a little too much. And it's like, it doesn't let me struggle for anything. I want to struggle for those types of games. I want to work for the puzzles.
So
It's
you,
a
and it's
very
like-
easy game.
you want
Yeah.
you want it to be more impenetrable like Mist.
Yes, exactly. I want it to be impenetrable, or just
But,
a
like-
little bit more. Like, what it does is, like, if I look at the top of the box that I'm looking at, it or whatever, it'll say like things like, "Oh, why don't you focus on the sides of the box for now?" Or, you know, anytime that I got stuck even for a second, I would put like that lens on, and then it's like, "Oh, okay, there's something to do there." I felt like there was never a point where I felt confused or stuck or struggled for anything. I don't think I was ever stuck for more than a minute in that game, except in the epilogue. In the epilogue, there was something, and I'm not sure if there's any way to do it other than brute force. But once I figured out how to brute force, how to go through the rotations of like this key and whatever, and figured out how to brute force it. It took me like a minute to brute force it, and it was just not. I just don't think it's very fun. I want to. Just don't hold my hand. Let me struggle.
I think it was way better when the concept of like touching this, like using the touchscreen to rotate the thing around and to like interact with the pieces of the box. It was better when that was a novel idea, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not a hard game. And in 2018, I can see why it would be kind of boring.
Yeah, and I
think-
could see also that it's meant for a probably a wider market. Like, I could see like one of my charges has the game on his iPad. Like, it's meant for maybe not me, like a target audience that's not me, who's super into like hard puzzle games, but
Yeah, I found it. The Room is a really interesting game. It's actually one that I recommended to my friend who doesn't play games, and she adored it. So that basically fits into exactly what you were just talking about. Like, she's like, "Oh man, if I ever get stuck, like it just kind of helps me out, and it makes me like broaden my like. Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that, like that kind of thing. Like, so for her, those kinds of hints and stuff were actually a positive.
Yeah, like there were clues, and I did click a clue once to see if there was a way to not brute force that thing in the epilogue I was talking about, but that the clue didn't really help at all, because it seems like that brute force thing isn't actually necessary to beat the epilogue. So I don't know. It's just like I don't know if the sequels are better, or I mean harder, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like I sound like an asshole. It's like, oh, this game's too easy for me, but
So is it okay
it's
to
just-
slightly spoil a 6-year-old game?
Go ahead.
So that I last played it probably 6 years ago. Is that epilogue still like just super fucked, and you're just like, what is going on? Why am I in space?
Yeah, it's kind of still that. There's a very loose story with like a null element, and you're trying to figure out what this element is, and the story doesn't. You're kind of following the guy who created or discovered or whatever the null element, and the last part is you following him into the next dimension, I guess, or whatever that is. But yeah.
It kind of worked for me when I remember not thinking it was that crazy, but I had been expecting it to go sideways for a while. So
Yeah. I like the story elements. I kind of wished it was a little more into that. I kind of was into like, what the fuck's going on here? What is this null element thing? What is, why am I like 2 steps behind this guy, but he can leave notes for me? Yeah, I was into kind of figuring out that stuff, and then it just didn't pay off for me.
Fair enough.
But I don't know. It's a good game. It's not a great game.
The later games in the series do more with the story, but they don't necessarily get any harder. So
Okay.
if you're interested in the story, they're not terrible. They're kind of cool, but like the difficulty is pretty consistent through the whole series.
Okay.
What are they up to now? Like, what's the most recent room?
Last one I played was 4.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
there's
4 is the
four?
last one.
The last one I played was 3.
Dang. Last one I played was 1.
I think that will be the last one I play too.
I really like the story elements. So I play them as they come out because it's like $2 and it takes an hour, and I think the story is interesting. But gameplay wise, they're super like boring, really.
Yeah, but the first one, the first chapter is free. The tutorial and for chapter 1 are free, and then you have to make like an in-game purchase of like $1. And I think it's worth $1 you kind of know if after chapter 1 if that's the kind of game you're looking for. But
I think they're better on tablets than on phones. I've played it on both.
Maybe that's part of my issue too. It was kind of a small screen. I couldn't really appreciate quite how nice it looked.
The issues you're describing are present on tablets too, but
yeah.
Aren't they also on PC or something now?
I think
so.
They are.
Weird.
Yeah.
Recently, I have gotten into watching puzzle box videos on YouTube. So it's like, I don't know, maybe that's something you could get into as puzzle boxes if you want the room, but it's not hard enough for you. And
Yeah, like,
it also led me down like a road of watching like magic videos. Not like magic videos, like sleight of hand, like magic tutorials, and like there's a Penn and Teller show called Fool Us, and now I'm just watching like those clips on YouTube.
That show is so good.
This is a dark YouTube hole I've fallen down. Just like, oh, I'm gonna watch this puzzle. I don't even know how I came across this stuff, but just like watching puzzle box videos.
Yeah, like I was talking to my husband, like when we were doing our other podcast, which I recorded this morning, and he was kind of like talking about how it would be cool to play a game like The Room, like unlocking a box, but it's just super hard and you have to struggle with it for a long time. And I really do like the mechanics. I just don't want them to like, don't point me in the right direction. Let me just figure it out.
Have you ever done a escape room?
Yes, I did one. Xavier and I did it for our anniversary one year. It was pretty fun. We got out.
That's good.
Would you recommend an escape room over The Room?
Yes, it was more fun and it was harder.
I will say the escape rooms are like a super fun thing to do a time. Yeah. But as someone who has done a lot of escape rooms, they're all kind of the same.
Yeah, I would recommend if anybody's in New York, Escape Games NYC. They got some cool rooms.
Cool.
I think Nintendo was touring around with like a Zelda themed one.
They were, yeah. IGN did it.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that are interesting, Pat, you've been playing something cool this week.
Yeah, so I've been playing this game Golem Gates that I don't see anybody talking about at all, which I think is kind of weird because it's pretty cool and interesting concept anyway. So it's been in early access for a while. I hadn't touched it in a long time. It just came out early access this week. So I was like, I should check and see where this is at. And it's a pretty cool game. It's on sale for 20% off right now, which is a pretty good price for it. And it released in a very stable state from what I can tell. So early access issues are pretty non-existent. But basically at its core, it's an RTS, and it's very much an RTS first. So it's got the mechanics I'm about to talk about, don't overshadow that. But it's an RTS with like kind of card playing mechanics. So you have a deck that you can customize. There's around 100 different cards in the game. So you build a deck, you draw a starting hand, just like if you were playing Hearthstone or something like that. And then you have an energy resource that goes up over time that, allows you to play your cards. And then you control them as the cards are like units, buffs. There's some that let you manipulate your deck to draw more cards. Defensive structures like towers, traps, and you play them, and then you control the units like you would in an RTS. You click on them and right click to move around and stuff. The game is focused around in single player. It's always focused around destroying these Golem Gates, and then in multiplayer, it's each player has like they're called harbingers, like an avatar that you're trying to kill that can be moved around the map and stuff. So the deck mechanic is less. It's not really like RTS Hearthstone. The deck mechanic really exists more to eliminate build orders, which is sort of the like make or break. You're either going to love or hate RTSs based on how you feel about the concept of build orders. Some people like the like watching people try to be as efficient and as possible with their mouse clicks to have the most clean build order, which is in games like StarCraft is the concept of like, I build this building, then this building, then spawn these units, then build this building, then spawn these units, then buy this upgrade. And it's very like, it's been mined to death. So it's StarCraft 2, you know what the optimal build orders for each thing are, you know what build orders counter other build orders. So a lot of people enjoy it. I think that, you know, I'm not really educated enough to make a strong critical argument one way or another. I find it super boring, and I have never liked anything beyond like campaigns in RTSs because I can't handle how stale I feel like they are to watch. But anyway, Golem Gates kind of tries to get away from that by sort of randomizing when you have access to things a little bit. And it seems really cool. I haven't played tons and tons of hours of it, but I played the first like third of the campaign and looked at a little bit of the multiplayer and stuff. It's there's no microtransactions. You unlock new cards through play. You don't start with all of them. But it's a lot of fun. It also has a really, really, really awesome art style, and the music is pretty cool too.
I feel like I haven't heard anything about this game until you said, "Hey, I'm playing this game. Is anybody else playing it?"
Yeah, the same to me.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. There's been like zero coverage of it whatsoever. I remember seeing it in early access months ago, and what's odd, the reason that I find that so odd is that it's very competently made. Like you'll be able to tell really quick whether it's for you or not, and it's not going to be for a lot of people. I can't say everyone should go out and play this game because it's like pretty hardcore. It's not really based on APM at all.
I'm looking at it on the stream right now. It's like really pretty.
I would say like if the art style appeals, the art style I think is going to be the make or break for a lot of people. If the art style appeals to you, you'll probably get into it because it's hard, but it's not, the campaign is meaty enough that even if you don't get into multiplayer, it's worth it to see the campaign through. But there's very little storyline. It's very, very, the maps all look very, very similar, almost identical in terms of like they all have that one weird, like almost computer circuitry mixed with a Giger painting kind of art style. And I'm really into that. So it doesn't bother me, but I think that will be the thing that a lot of people will either be super into or completely turned off by, is like that very repetitive art style, very weird, simplistic dialogue at the start of each level. I think it's really fascinating, but I think a lot of people would find it kind of esoteric and hard to understand or enjoy.
Okay. I think the only news article that I could even find about it was from CBR, and it's because some guys who worked on the Marvel Cinematic Universe are part of the design team for it.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even, that would make sense. Like the art in it bears some resemblance to some of the stuff in the Thor movies.
Interesting. So Alex, I understand that you don't have a game to talk to us about this week, but you have something more interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I do have something to talk about. Whether or not it's more interesting is up to you guys. So for a world exclusive, for the first time on a podcast ever, rather than talking about a video game, I'm going to talk about a news article.
What?
We'll see if it pays off
every week.
Sorry, I should rephrase. It's not necessarily a news article. It's an opinion piece. So
bold move. We'll see if it pays off.
Yeah. So let's buckle up, motherfuckers, because this is, I don't know. I don't want to be too political, so we'll stay away from the politics of it. But yeah, I didn't play any games this week. Again, sorry. We're in crunch. I don't know if I'm going to be playing many games over the next month. But This article came out. It's probably about a 10-minute read. And to give some context to it, GDC happened a few weeks ago. Or was it last week? I can't actually remember. But so for those who don't know, GDC is a big conference that happens in San Francisco every year. It's the Game Developers Conference. It's a business-to-business conference. It's not public-facing, so if you are a fan of video games, don't go to GDC because there's no announcements. There's nothing like that. It's largely networking and going to like talks, learning stuff, learning about C++ programming, like how to use shaders properly and like crazy stuff. But it's a great conference. I've gone once, but it's a really weird thing. And this year, Rami Ismail of Vlambeer Games, makers of like Nuclear Throne, Luftrausers, and like Ridiculous Fishing and stuff, he held a panel that was called One Reason to Be. So the one reason to be was to talk about game makers who like really wanted to be at GDC but couldn't necessarily get there for one reason or another, or people that are generally underrepresented. So like I said, GDC is in San Francisco, and staying in San Francisco for a week can be prohibitively expensive because it's basically the most expensive city on earth. That and the passes to GDC can be upwards of like $2,500 US. So like it's pretty crazy. So he specifically held this panel to talk about those who who make games and come from like developing nations. So are you guys with me so far?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Rami is Egyptian and Dutch.
Dutch, yeah.
Yeah, he runs into a lot of problems with like airport security in Egyptian.
Yeah, he's very open about it, and I think it's really cool. So there is a separate article that's all about Rami and all about that panel, but the one I'm talking about is one that's written by a lady named Gwendolyn Foster. And for full disclosure, I am familiar with Gwen, like on a personal level. She's one of Cheska's old friends. But she is a video game developer from the Philippines. And so those of you listening, if you do not know, the Philippines is full of amazing developers, and there's some really good studios there, but it is still technically a third world country. So you'll usually find that there's a lot of outsourced developers there rather than developers making games for themselves, or like, self-started indie studios or anything like that. So Gwendolyn has been making games for years. She's a really good programmer, like really, really highly respected in Southeast Asia for being both really good at computer science, but also in promoting indie games in the region. So when I was saying that there's a lot of outsourcing, she's one of the voices for indie games within not just Philippines, but Southeast Asia. So you have Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, etc. She's the creator and director for like the IGDA, if you're familiar with the IGDA, which is International Game Developers Association for Southeast Asia, and she started game developer associations in the Philippines and stuff like that. You can find all this in the article. I won't go too much into it, but Rami directly invited her, paid for her flight, paid for her GDC pass, and paid for her lodging because he really wanted her to be a part of that panel and have the voice of someone like that come out and be heard by people who generally wouldn't listen to it, which is pretty amazing, honestly. And she was 100% ready to go, but the U.S. government, being what it is right now, would not approve her visa, despite the fact that she had proof of ticket and proof of return ticket and proof of why she's going to this conference, that she's a registered speaker and stuff like that. She applied multiple times and was turned down each time. And there's a multitude of reasons. She goes into it in the article, again, worth reading. One of the biggest of which is just straight up racial profiling, because she is a single Filipina in her 30s. So she gets profiled as the type of person who'd be coming to the U.S. to marry someone and run away from home, right? Like, that's just the way the U.S. government sees it, even if, like, her and that's very far from reality. It's just something that she has to deal with. And the article in the end is a very optimistic thing, and it's a really good think piece. And it opens your eyes to the reality that a lot of people like us don't really think about, because we're from developed or quote unquote rich nations and we don't have to worry about this kind of thing. But this article and a couple companion pieces to it really help you open your mind to what people like who live in India or Philippines or whatever that they have to deal with, and what they have to kind of think about on a day-to-day basis that we just take for granted. So 100% recommend reading that article. It'll take you no more than about 10 to 15 minutes. And yeah, it's fascinating.
Excellent. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Yeah,
I haven't read that article because I was pretty unplugged this week, but it is something that is on my reading list.
Yes. So I think let's get back to dick jokes.
It's a really good article. You should definitely read it. And I think that there's a lot of that, like Andre pointed out to us earlier when you had first shared it too, that's an issue that has plagued esports teams too.
Oh yeah.
Which is ultimately less important, I think, than what they were trying to do. But it's still a thing like that does impact video games.
Yeah, and it's honestly it's way bigger than just video games, right? Like it's
totally.
It's something that like it's an article that, yes, it's based around the world of video games, but it is reality for a lot of people. And like the person I'm dating and who, like is my best friend comes from a developing nation. So we have to deal with things like visas and we have to deal with stuff like that. So it's something that a lot of us probably wouldn't think about on a day-to-day basis, but it's totally worth thinking about the people who don't have the opportunity to kind of speak for themselves about it.
Definitely. Speaking of dick jokes, you said it earlier on, and then someone else said something intelligent. I really like the segue. I've been playing Far Cry 5. I know, Pat, you've been playing this as well. I'm probably not going to talk too in depth or too long about it, because it's a Far Cry game, and the story doesn't live up to the promise. So, that's kind of everything that needs to be said, I feel like, about that game. There's a couple of things that I would say I do and don't like about it. So the moment-to-moment gameplay is, as you would anticipate, is pretty good. In terms of like the shooting feels good, the running feels good, the driving feels good, the flying feels good. The changes they've made in terms of how you level up and like how you gain perks, awesome. The fact that they've taken away like the hunting and kind of crafting aspects, I'm less hot on. I feel like I would have liked to have seen like kind of a mix between the two. For those who aren't familiar, basically in old Far Cry games, you would like kill 3 sharks to get a new wallet so that you could hold more money. Whereas in Far Cry 5, you kill a black bear and you fulfill the kill a black bear challenge, and you never have to kill a black bear again.
It's like crossing items off of a list almost.
Yeah, it's called, like, they call it a challenge list, and like all of the like gun challenges, exploration challenges, like everything apart from the hunting challenges are awesome. Like being able to be like, I got 20 arrow kills, so now I got 3 poke points. That's awesome. I got 30 headshots, so I have 3 poke points. And like you can play in certain ways that maximize your perk points and make you more powerful more early in the game, which is really cool. But then the game kind of like, I think Austin said this on Waypoint Radio, that the game doesn't respond to that. So like I got that 30 headshots challenge, and people aren't wearing like helmets. They're still living their lives helmet free. I'm pretty early in the game though, so Pat may have seen other stuff. I like the companion system. I think it's pretty cool. I like a lot of stuff. I think first person driving is a huge pain in the ass.
As always.
Yeah. It's so good in Far Cry though. I don't know. I've always loved the driving in those games.
It is better than I think I have seen it in any other game.
It's super kinetic. That's what I like about it. Like,
I don't drive, so I don't know how realistic it is.
not really.
No.
Imagine you were driving from your perspective.
Yeah, the handling model is not realistic, but you
No.
wouldn't want it to be.
And I've had some very funny things happen with the AI and with characters in game, a few of which I took screenshots of. I've had several characters sitting down on chairs when there was no chair there. I uploaded a picture of that to Facebook today.
I saw that. That was funny.
extremely funny.
Yeah.
I had one where instead of getting into a car, a companion got under the car and wedged the car up on their head, like at a full diagonal.
Oh, so it's like that.
That's
it's
good.
Like the
You-
Far Cry trains,
You're-
or not the Far Cry Fallout trains, where it's just the guy with the train head and he just runs.
I wasn't gonna pick this game up, but now you're kind of turning me.
Anytime I told that character to move, he would move, but the car would stay like wedged on top of his head with the axle. So he's like dragging this like Jeep around this small little
Oh
base.
man, did he have like a big
that's
sword, and then he's kind of like Pyramid Head, but with like a fucking truck?
Truckhead.
And the truck was purple and lime green and had dragons on the side and a gun on the back.
Yes, that truck is the best one to have that happen with.
Yeah, and it was Merle who was doing the
Oh,
dragon.
nice.
So it was extremely funny.
So
Yeah.
how recently have you played Far Cry 3 or 4?
I haven't played a Far Cry game since playing
Okay.
about 2/3 of Far Cry 3 the week it came out.
I've heard a few people talking about how like the challenge system with hunting is a step backwards from those games, and like that it was better when you had to go find the animals to craft the holsters and stuff. I played about 4 hours of Far Cry 3 this week, just because I'm playing Far Cry 5 co-op with my partner, and I kind of I don't want to get too far ahead, so I'm just kind of reserving that game for when we can play together. And so I kind of booted up Far Cry 3 as like if I feel like I really want to play, I'll just go play Far Cry 3 for a bit. Shit sucks. Like that crafting, having to hunt down those different animals kind of sucks. Like it was novel at the time, but having done that in probably 40 different video games since then, that's an exaggeration. I'm kidding. But like I played Red Dead about a few weeks ago, and it has there's similar stuff in Red Dead, and it's just like having to find specific animal parts. It's not like, and stuff. I'm also playing Horizon right now too, and the same thing there. I'm actually so happy that Far Cry 5 got away from that. It was definitely a cool novel concept at the time, but I think it's super stale at this point. And if they had released it with that, I'm not saying the system that they have in is like amazing or anything, but if they had actually released it with that old system, I would have been like, come on, I don't want to do this again. So I think there's a bit of rose-colored glasses going on in some cases when people are saying the old system was better, even if the new system could also be better.
So
yeah, I feel like we're at kind of crafting overload with games, which I mean, I remember when I played Far Cry 3, I liked it, but I don't know how much of that is because it was like,
Oh, it's a great game.
This makes sense because I need to have a new new item, and so then I can go and hunt and get that item. But it's one of those things too where I feel like if I went back, I would probably find it annoying too and be like, let me craft it now. I don't need to hunt it.
I mean, the game itself is still great. Have had a lot of fun
Yeah.
revisiting it. So it's nothing against this. I happen to really enjoy the series, and I'm enjoying Far Cry 5 more than most people, I think. But part of that because I have a co-op partner to play with, I think, too.
Right.
But the crafting is definitely not a thing I'm sad to see go.
So I think that it's safe to say that a lot of people have had criticisms for that game, and it seems like the biggest of which is how it kind of pulls its punches with the story, which we were talking about last week, and I was saying I hope they don't, but it turns out they did. So if you kind of ignore those criticisms, just looking at it as a video game, how is it?
It's a great video game.
I feel the same way.
There's one or two things that I find really annoying at the moment is the fact that the world is so hostile. Like it's
Right.
this beautiful open terrain that I want to explore, but I cannot drive 100 feet
Yeah.
down the road without being ambushed by 6, like, I don't know, wrestler-looking dudes in dirty clothes with machine guns.
Or cougars.
Or yeah, animals.
Yeah, it's pretty rough in that regard. I think that's a problem present in a lot of recent open world games, though. Like I mentioned, I'm playing a lot of Horizon right now because I want to get it off my list, and I'm of course loving it because that game is beautiful and amazing. But at the same time, like I was like getting so pissed off yesterday because I was like, I just want to go find these campfires, and I walk 10 feet, and then I get attacked by a massive enemy. And it like does half my health, and now I have to walk slowly to pick up healing items, and then as soon as I get to the campfire, then I'm ambushed by a stalker. And like I think it's a problem that's like creeping into a lot of open world games. And I don't think Far Cry avoids it.
No.
Yeah.
I totally had that issue with Horizon as well. I think that was what I really enjoyed Horizon, but I think that was the reason why I didn't go back in when I lost my save and start playing again, even though I like the game.
I think that I haven't played enough of Far Cry to be able to say for sure, but the thing about Horizon is once I got back into it, I hadn't played it in a couple months. Once I got back into it, I kind of relearned the methods to avoid those enemies, and I feel like Far Cry doesn't have as many of those methods. So it's more frustrating there than it is in, and you're like encouraged to take vehicles on the road, and when you're driving a car down the road, like if you pass an enemy, a truck full of enemies, they're all going to turn around and shoot at you. And it would just be nice if there was some way to like, well, I'm driving one of their a cultist vehicle, so maybe they won't notice that it's me inside of it while I'm driving it or something.
Jeep stealth.
Yeah,
but
I mean, like, you're just a guy. I don't see why every single person can see you from 200 meters away inside of a car.
That's a good point, actually, because you do change your clothes
God.
early on out of your deputy uniform.
Did
They
any of you ever
make reference to that?
Did any of you ever play the first Far Cry though, where enemies would see
yeah.
you literally from
Yeah.
across the map?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's better than that.
I will say that I think that Far Cry 5 is like I think anyone who's disappointed with it, it's totally valid. I'm not necessarily trying to like apologize for the mistakes that it makes, because it definitely does pull its punches narratively, and there are some things mechanically that haven't evolved as much as you might like. But I have seen more armchair game design with this game than I've seen, I think, with any other game, any other major release. Like the amount of like, well, they should have done this, they should have done this. Like, I love Waypoint and I love Austin's criticism, but listening to his discussion, I think his review is actually a really good read. But listening to his criticism on the podcast, I was like, dude, go make a video game then. Like, you have all these ideas for how it could be better. Like,
I
go
would say
do
the
it.
same on this one, actually. A lot of armchair game design, and I think it's because the concept is really simple.
Yeah.
There's a few things that I personally would change about it.
Oh yeah, same.
And like I'm reminded of playing GTA and Watch Dogs 2, where I'm in an American setting, and there are places of peace. There's places of like tranquility, and I can drive around without like diving out of my car and hiding in a bush or just speeding past enemies.
So I will say, I think that part of that gets a little bit better as you as you level up the resistance in the different regions. That makes it safer to move around, because it's like that in Far Cry 3. When you take out the outposts, it makes that area safe, so you don't have to worry about getting attacked every 100 feet. So that's definitely a thing that is rectified one way in the game, but early on it's totally that kind of frustrating, like you're attacked, and there's a lot of hostile wildlife too when you get off the roads.
Yeah. I just have one question. I guess it's probably for Sam, but Pat can also answer. Of the animals that you can hang out with that aren't hostile, which one is your favorite? Is it the pupper, is it the kitty, or is it the burr?
I only have one. His name is Boomer. He's a very good boy. He's a dog. One of his ears is permanently flopped down and one is permanently up.
Aww.
And he has like an incredibly realistic dog movements and face.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
I'm extremely disappointed though because it doesn't get in the car when you get in a car.
That is a
What?
piece of armchair game design that is 100% accurate.
Oh, so he
Why
doesn't
the
ride.
fuck does that dog not get in the car?
He doesn't ride
He just-
shotgun and just like.
No.
Stick his
Oh,
head out the window.
That's like the only thing
Just
I want is to have a dog in the game and then be able to like drive around with the dog.
oh my god!
He
That,
just
yeah.
disappears, and then when you get to your next objective, he's just there, and it's like,
Hi,
all right, I get
It's-
it.
It
They
seems
probably
like,
don't want you, like driving the dog off a cliff or something.
but you can shoot the dog. You can shoot all kinds of
Fuck.
dogs.
What the fuck?
Yep.
I just looked up the ending for Far Cry 5, and
Well, I'd rather not know, even though
No,
the story
yeah,
is
yeah.
not great.
as
I'm gonna
Austin
try
was
and-
mentioning it on Waypoint
Yeah,
Radio.
he mentioned
I was
it.
curious, and
I
I don't
mentioned it on the
attest by this
Discast as
game,
well.
but-
As long as it's better than the ending to Far Cry 3.
I don't think it is, but I don't.
I don't think it is.
I think that I
Ouch.
think it's interesting that people and again, I don't mean to suggest that like everyone should lay off, but it is interesting that like none of the Far Cry games have ever had a good story. From the first one to now, never. There's never been a good story in a Far Cry game. And so I think it's kind of funny that this one, I know that people are like disappointed because it could have been so much darker and like more meaningful and like had something political to say, which I would have loved. But like Ubisoft, there hasn't been like a great story in a Ubisoft game aside from maybe like Watch Dogs 2 and some of the
Origins.
Assassin's Creed stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm an Assassin's Creed fanboy, so I think that has a cool story. But like most Ubisoft games don't have compelling stories. They're not a great narrative developer, so I don't know. I think it's interesting that people are so disappointed in it when I don't really know why you would have expected it to actually be super good anyway.
I think you're totally right. But I think, especially with the Far Cry series, there have been some of the best characters in video games, like especially for like action-y kind of video games. Like I still
guess, I
think
don't know.
I still
Really
think
good characters.
I still think Voss is one of the like ultimate characters from one of these kinds of games. And they
I guess.
I
Like,
really like
even if
the
the
moment.
story wasn't good, they could have at least like tried to do something interesting with it, and they don't really like setting a Far Cry game in like the US. That's like kind of interesting inherently, but because it's been like you're going to these exotic locations and dealing with native peoples and whatnot, but
Mhm.
It's kind of still the
Just,
same
like,
for me.
it's true. And it's, Ubisoft is French, so or I don't who even develops Far Cry. Is it a Canadian studio? I don't know.
think it
But-
might be.
Like it's just kind of such
Montreal,
a
yeah.
like both sides, middle of the road like story that it's like not trying to do anything interesting. Like if it was just like a bad story, that'd be something else. But it's just kind of like they so actively try to not do anything interesting
Yeah.
that I think that seems to be more of the problem that I'm picking up from people.
I think what the story we all want is also really difficult for a publicly traded company to do.
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
think it's
They'll do
difficult.
an interesting story, and it sounds like they didn't.
I don't mean to suggest that this isn't like a nationalist thing. I think anyone has the right to try, of course, but I think it's also hard for a Canadian studio to probably like I would imagine if I was making like if somebody said to me like make a game about the political state in the UK right now, I would be like, I don't know, I'm not really equipped for that.
Yeah.
And Canada's a lot closer to here than
Yeah.
the UK is to me, but
make a
still I
game-
can see how that could be challenging.
Make Yoko Taro make a game about Brexit.
Right, yeah.
He already has. Again.
That's actually the first near.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can see how that could be another layer of complexity, even though I don't think that's an excuse either.
No, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why Far Cry 5 didn't pan out as like Game of the Year amazingness. I do really think that they don't stick the tone. I think that's my biggest issue with the story is that they're like the opening is so good.
It is.
The opening is like I'm super invested. I really want to see where this goes. This is cool as hell. This character is awesome. And then you just see nothing of that character and nothing like what you see in that scene again. like I'm several hours in and I've had nothing even remotely similar.
Yeah. It has some weird ways in which it, like, I didn't, they talked about this a little bit on the Bombcast. This is not really a spoiler, but it has like multiple sequences where you're supposed to die so that they can play you a cutscene. And that is something that I was like, really? This is kind of dumb. And it happens like 8 times in that game.
Yep.
Just like, why? And like, I haven't seen most of them. I've only seen it once, but like the framing was like, oh, you died, so we kidnapped you and took you here, and now we're releasing you. And it's like, what?
It's like in Grand Theft Auto when you go to the hospital. And then
Yeah.
Stuck
Yeah.
go to bed. They're just gonna let you go.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you died in like a police chase, but hey, go on.
But it's not part of the narrative.
No, yeah. It's just, similar concept.
There's a lot of but yeah, like they do kind of, they ratchet up the same thing that Marvel does in their movies, where like the pathos stuff, where everything serious is undercut by humor, and humor sometimes isn't on point. But yeah, I think we've talked a lot about Far Cry 5 for a game that like both Pat and I like, but I think agree has some problems.
I think the last piece that I have to say on it is like, I think the way that it's been reviewed, it'll be interesting to revisit it when some of the heavy hitters come out later this year. Because I could be totally wrong, but like when Red Dead comes out later this year, I mean, given its pedigree, I fully expect it to be a game that tries to say something political and probably is problematic in different areas. And I really hope that we see it, and like, if as political as Call of Duty tries to get, I hope they get held to a high standard, because I'm super here for video games that have potential political stuff in them being held to that high standard. But if we're going to do that, we got to do it. It can't be like, oh, this one Far Cry game was going to have cults in it and alt-right stuff in it, and it didn't. So it's like going to get like hammered critically. And then if Red Dead does something problematic, but it's like, yeah, but the game's so good, we don't have to talk about that. I feel like that's kind of a problem in how, like, that's a critical problem. So I think it'll be interesting to see.
I think the differing thing, the point that would differ for me there is that Far Cry politicized itself, whereas Red Dead is politically neutral in its marketing.
I mean, I think that Far Cry politicized itself in early press event, and I don't think it's fair to hold that as a piece of, I mean, it wasn't even really marketing. It's a gray area, because enthusiasts are it is marketing to enthusiasts, but I don't know that I'm comfortable taking that early press showing as a necessary piece when doing a critical analysis of where it went wrong.
But people have been that's something people like have been doing forever, and I feel like I think there needs to be like kind of more games journalism discussion of like, or just like a games community discussion of, hey, does an early E3 presentation mean anything for what I feel about the game? Just because, I mean, that's the type of thing that happened with No Man's Sky. It's happened with like Watch Dogs and stuff. And I mean, granted, there are some instances where they clearly showed stuff at E3 that's not represented in the final game. But at the same time, it's like, should that really matter as a part of how you view a game? It's hard to say.
I think it's a valuable service to give to consumers if all they get is like that E3 hype stuff, and they're like, oh wow, this game's gonna do something really cool, and then suddenly if they're reading this review and they're like, oh, it's not doing that at all. What? Or it doesn't have this, like in No Man's Sky, like if you're like, oh, there's gonna be the like game and I can play it forever, and then you read a review and you're like, oh, what was promised isn't here.
Yeah, I think it's a gray area. I think in the case of No Man's Sky, it actually is useful. But like, again, that Far Cry thing, like, unless you listen to game podcasts and watch E3 stuff, that the person that walks into the video game store did not know about that. Like, it's not a thing.
It's hard. It's like, it also reminds me of some film reviews that I've seen where like people expect something to be a comedy, but then when the movie actually doesn't end up being a comedy, they rate it lower, even though like the one that I'm thinking of is the movie Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, which I really like, which I think is a really sweet movie, but everybody expected it to be like this big comedy, especially since Steve Carell was starring in it, when it really isn't. So like so a lot of the people, like a lot of the reactions to it are like reactions to this is a comedy and it's not that funny, when it's inherently not really a comedy.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to find that balance of consumer, like informing the consumer of, hey, here's what the product is, versus let's evaluate the quality of this.
And I don't even know
movie
if I
game.
have a point. I just think it's an interesting thing to keep in mind as the year
Oh,
rolls.
for sure.
Yeah, the box art is still that like initial promo image of like the Last Supper looking thing with the cult people all around the
Yeah,
table.
I mean,
so like they're still using that like initial image and stuff.
yeah, but it still is about a Christian cult. I mean, it is
Yeah,
about a
yeah, yeah.
Christian gun-toting cult in Montana, definitely.
Which is where a lot of the like initial speculation was coming from.
Yeah, but it is that game still. It's just that the story that it tells isn't that compelling or like biting.
I'd also say that the Far Cry 5 announced trailer has 3.5 million views on YouTube. So I think, like, yes, we can say it doesn't reach that many people, but it reaches enough people and trickle down of information in
Well, I
like
don't-
the Xbox One. People still think the Xbox One can't play used games. Like, they talk about that on the Bombcast a lot, that people on the street still, that initial impact is passed on from people like us who are in the know down through to people like
Yeah,
my half brother who loves games and will watch a trailer every now and then, but was also disappointed in the story in this game.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mean the trailer either. I think that's a different thing. I mean more the place where like people really talked about how it was gonna be political for sure was when press were sitting in the room getting that announcement. They did the Ubisoft thing that they've done before with Watch Dogs when that was on the E3 stage when it first got announced, where they told press in the room, hey, we're going really deep on this. And that's really more the part that I think that language from them to members of the press maybe isn't something you can hold against them. The trailer is a different story though. And I don't feel that I don't feel that what we got is really that far removed from the tone set in the trailer for a lot of the core story stuff. The tone around it though is the problem. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, but at least the dog
See
has
how you
one
feel
floppy
when-
ear.
See how you feel when you get to the end.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what the ending is like, having a lot of people talked about it. I'm going to try and push through it for next week, I think.
I will
waiting
not
for the
finish
hot
it for
takes
many
on it.
months. Oh, I'm sure it's awful, and I don't think the story is good. All I'm saying is that as we go through the year, it'll be interesting to think about it and look back at it.
Yeah.
And
I agree, yeah.
I don't think this ending will be something that will be interesting to look back at. But
Yeah. And I
I just mean
Yeah.
as more games come out that maybe don't handle politics well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's move on to the next segment of the show, which is the quiz of the week. Everybody got your answer letters ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'm going to endeavor to keep better records this week. Okay, so I don't currently have a running tally of who's scored what, but I do believe that Erica is still in the lead.
That sounds right.
After last week's
that is-
performance, she better be.
Yeah, you got every question right last week, I think.
Killing it.
Yep.
I've thrown some interesting new styles of question in this week, aka
Oh,
true or
fuck it
false
up this week.
questions.
I swear to
Ooh.
God, if they're open critic questions, not good trivia.
Hey, it's
The
mostly a guess.
question is form of an essay, so you gotta get writing.
You've got 30
Question one.
seconds, 500 words.
What's the name of the friendly bear pal in Far Cry 5? Is it A, cheeseburger, B, hot dog, or C, waffles? Everybody ready?
The fact that one of these is true makes me really happy.
3, 2, 1, show them. Everybody put A, you get it correct. So that's everyone.
Yay.
Thank you
Yay.
to Pat for announcing that at the beginning of the podcast.
That's the only reason we knew. Well, I knew.
True or false? Golem Gates is an early access game.
Wait,
Which is true?
Which is which?
Is it has been early access or it is currently?
Is currently, and A is true, B is false.
Okay.
Golem Gates is
Wait,
an early
that's-
access game. A is true, B is false. 3, 2, 1, show them. Everybody got that right as well. It is
Yay!
not currently an early access game.
I also pointed that out, so it's 2 questions I've ruined.
Thanks, Pat.
I pointed out the answer to a question on the first quiz we did, and I got the answer wrong because the answers were.
I thought I was gonna screw with you all because it was an early access game until like 3 days ago.
Oh.
True or false? Again, A is true, B is false. Satoru Iwata was the programmer who managed to fit all of Kanto into Johto in Pokemon Gold and Silver. That's 3, 2, 1. Show them. Everybody put A. You are correct. So
Yay!
that is
That's such a. It
Alex.
was such a cool thing that he did.
I actually watched a video that referenced that earlier this week, so I'm like, oh, I actually knew this for sure.
I've mentioned it in a podcast earlier, not this one, but in a previous podcast.
Iwata was amazing.
That's so
Okay.
cool.
Rest in peace, Satoru Iwata.
Definitely,
He was a rad dude.
He's a very rad dude. The next question coming direct to you is the original Room was released for iPad in which year? A, 2013, B, 2012, C, 2010. Everybody ready? 3, 2, 1, show them. Everybody put B. You get a point. So that's everyone but Andre.
I gave that one away.
I forgot the order again.
Man, it's weird when
Final
you
question.
when you're actually awake during the podcast, you can actually like pay attention.
That's helpful.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So my final question is because I didn't know what game Andre was going to talk about, I made a rough guess and thought Ni no Kuni because I figured he's probably still playing it after last week.
I gave a hint last week.
I don't know.
I said I was playing something for this week.
Also, I completely forgot to mention I played like 13 hours of Steam World Dig 2 while on holiday. It's a very good
Oh,
game.
that's such a good game.
is so good.
I love that game.
So what is the name of the protagonist in Ni no Kuni, The Wrath of the White Witch? Is it A, Barry? Is it B, Oliver? Or is it C, Thomas? I also
I
accidentally
was
gave
hoping
this...
you were going to ask a question about Hot Troit.
I actually was going to ask a question about Hot Troit, and I had it written down, and I decided it wasn't funny enough. Okay, so let's see your answers. 3, 2, 1, go. So everybody put B. You are correct. So that looks like everyone but Erica.
Erica didn't have another
having
clean
a bad
sweep.
week.
Wow.
It looks like Erica, you missed 1 question out of 5. No,
2.
2 out of 5.
Yeah.
But Alex and Allison got all 5.
Hey.
Well done, everyone.
Yay!
So no news this week. No news is good news. Some would argue. I don't think there was any big gaming news this week. Actually, I didn't catch much. But again, I was offline most of the week on holiday. What did I miss? Anything interesting? Any new
No Man's
Nintendo
Sky's
dicks?
getting a expansion. If you care about that.
No Man's Sky
Oh.
coming to the Xbox, but that's a different podcast because today we're talking about.
Yeah, I have a news item, but I'll give it to you next week.
Ooh. Today we're talking about wrestling,
Yeah.
specifically Wrestle Kingdom 12.
Yeah.
Erica, would you like to introduce a little bit of talk a little bit about the show?
Sure. So Wrestle Kingdom is kind of the Super Bowl of, or the WrestleMania of New Japan Pro Wrestling, which it's their big show of the year. It's like right after New Year's, and it's kind of just sets things up for what's going to go on the rest of the year. And usually every title is on the line, which it was the case this time as well, and it's just a fun time. Super long.
Yeah, it was long.
Yeah, it was long.
That's our review, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
So we all watched it.
Yeah.
Were all of us fans of wrestling beforehand, or were some of us not?
Yeah, let's go through, talk
Go
about
ahead,
our
what's your-
wrestling.
Alex, why don't you start? What's your experience with wrestling?
Prior to this, I had watched a little bit of WWF when I was in elementary school, just because it would be on at Friends. And at age 9, I was like, this is super not for me. And I never really watched it up until watching Wrestle Kingdom with y'all.
Yeah.
I have watched WrestleMania 17 about 9 times.
9 times.
My university pals and I would get drunk and watch WrestleMania 17. So that
I'm
also
not
ages me,
familiar with
if anyone's interested.
Why?
Oh,
WrestleMania
that's
17.
because the main event was Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock.
Oh, I did
Yeah.
see that actually. I did see
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Oh,
So
was
we
that
would-
Stone Cold's last match?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
That was the anniversary of his last match was just the other day.
Then it's
So-
WrestleMania X7. All right, it's not 17.
Oh,
They
sorry.
got very serious about
Please.
X7.
So we used to set up 2 TVs in our living room and have a Burnout 2 crash party on one and watch WrestleMania 17 and drink on the other.
You guys
And
knew
that
how
was
to
our
live.
pregame. So yeah, that and I watched every appearance by Stephen Amell in the WWE on YouTube.
What about New Japan? He's in
He
Ring
was
of
in-
Honor.
Yeah, he was in Ring of Honor. I decided to watch that after the first one was kind of enough.
Yeah, he's an official member of the Bullet Club.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
He's got a shirt that says Vigilante Club on. It's pretty cool. It's a nice shirt.
Can I buy that shirt?
You can pro wrestling tees.
They don't pay us. Stop saying that.
Yeah, that's how you know that Sam's not that into wrestling, because he asked the question, "Can I buy that shirt?"
You can buy every shirt.
You can buy everything.
They'll sell you the belts. They'll sell you everything.
Also, I'd like to point out a few things, but I'll let everyone go first because I am going to probably have to drop off soon because it's almost 1 a.m.
Allison, what's your background with wrestling?
This is literally the first time I've ever seen any wrestling. I just never grew up with it. None of my family watches wrestling. I didn't know any friends growing up that watched wrestling. So it's just one of those things that I knew existed, but I just never really thought to look into. Mostly just because I have no idea how I would have gotten into that. So yeah, this is the first time I've ever seen any wrestling, which is
like a wrestling senpai to get you into it.
yeah. Well, I mean, Erica, Alex, and I all watched it together, and that was really helpful because I was that and Erica's notes because I was like, oh, okay, there's some context here that I could kind of get because I had no idea about any of it, and so it was interesting reading all those notes.
Yeah. Andre?
I watched some as a kid. I remember Chris Jericho. I really liked Chris Jericho. So that was great for
one for you.
Yeah. But then around WrestleMania 30, I got back into WWE like right after WrestleMania 30 because I heard the show was really good. Then I went back and watched it, and that show was really good. And then I fell off like a year ago. I was watching like everything WWE did for like 2-3 years, and then I fell off like a year ago.
Did you not catch? I can't remember now the timeline. That awful KO and Chris Jericho run.
I fell off in like the midst of that, like the list.
It was a good thing at first.
I fell off right as their friendship was deteriorating.
It did not end in a good way. It was a bad storyline.
I convinced some friends to watch WrestleMania 32. I think
it's a good one.
It was the one. I don't think, or was it? It was one of them where. Which one was it? It was the one where John Cena couldn't wrestle, but he saved The Rock from the Wyatt family.
Oh.
Is that? This is 34. I think
No.
it's 30. It might have been 31. I don't know. The WrestleMania is so hit and miss. I'm gonna watch this year though because Daniel Bryan.
Yeah. Pat?
Yeah, so I grew up in a house where like wrestling was not allowed, and was told it was stupid, like for most of my youth. And so I like didn't even look at it until I was in my 20s. And then Giant Bomb actually got me into checking it out. So I was like, wow, they're going to do a wrestling podcast, and I really like these guys. It must not be as stupid as I think. And then I got like super, super hooked. That was around, I don't know, whenever that podcast started, which I think was like 4 years ago.
It was before WrestleMania 30.
Sorry, you're talking about the Power Bombcast?
Yes, the Power Bombcast. And I got like super invested, and I went back and watched Monday Night War. I watched a ton of old WrestleManias. One of my best friends is a huge wrestling fan, so as soon as I got into it, he was like, let's watch all this wrestling. So I just immersed myself and watched hundreds of hours of wrestling over the course of a couple of years. Now I tune in for the big pay-per-views. I keep a network subscription because I like to go back and watch old matches sometimes. I'm pretty meh on WWE's product right now. I think WrestleMania looks like it could be good, but this is the first time I've ever gotten into any kind of wrestling outside of WWE except for watching Shinsuke Nakamura matches. But I never have watched a full pay-per-view of New Japan or any other Japanese wrestling, or any other non-WWE wrestling for that matter.
I've got some DDT videos you need to watch.
So I'm actually a fairly new wrestling fan, despite it like being my whole life now. But yeah, about a year ago-ish now, I got really into New Japan. I was never a WWE person. I had friends who were into it, so it was kind of like in the background. Like I kind of knew who some of the big guys were, just not. I wasn't really like a big fan or anything. I wasn't watching it at all. Mm-hmm. But I've seen probably the last 7 Royal Rumbles because my husband was really into wrestling as a child and then fell off, in like high school age-ish, and then got back into it. And so we were kind of watching the pay-per-views, and while we were dating, I was like, oh, the Royal Rumble is actually super interesting because somebody new is coming in every, 30 seconds. It's a minute. 90 seconds. And so, that held my attention a lot more as somebody who didn't care about that. And so I've watched all of those. And then New Japan, I heard there's a wrestling journalist, Dave Meltzer, who he's like, he's been writing about wrestling like forever. He's like up there in terms of people who have written the most words ever because he puts out a newsletter on like pretty much every wrestling show every week. And he gave Kenny Omega and Okada, they had a match at last Wrestle Kingdom. He gave it 6 stars, and his rating is out of 5 stars. So that interested me. I decided to check it out, and then he gave another match is 6.25 stars because he said it was better than that one. So I was like, oh shit, okay, maybe there's something here, and it turns out there's something there. And I super like it a lot. I watch everything New Japan puts out, and I watch also some WWE. I watch NXT. They're like developmental stuff, which I think is really, really good. And I watch like the big pay-per-views for the WWE, but that's about it. I've actually been thinking about watching SmackDown also. But
when I stopped, SmackDown was the better of the 2 shows.
Yeah, like I care about Shinsuke Nakamura. I feel like I should care more about AJ Styles than I do.
His hair is so good.
It's terrible.
It's
he
so
looks
good.
like an old man with like boy band hair.
Soccer mom hair.
So,
I don't know.
For what it's worth, though, as it is 1 a.m. in the UK, I would love to hear Sam's thoughts on this whole thing.
Yeah, tell me, Sam, what's going on?
Let's kick it off.
I have several questions.
Okay.
Number 1, are the Bullet Club good guys or bad guys? Because some of them look like bad guys, and some of them look like good guys.
They're a heel stable, technically, So the Bullet Club actually right after this all happened at Wrestle Kingdom is divided right now, and it's kind of like if you're Team Kenny, you're a baby face, and if you're Team Cody, you're a heel. But it's kind of, they're technically heels, but I feel like there's not a lot of heels in wrestling, like you're supposed to like them. You can like them.
They're bad guys because they're disrespectful. They don't speak Japanese, even though they work in Japan.
Like Kenny Omega, he speaks fluent Japanese, and he speaks to the crowd like with the mic all the time in English, because that's like a dick thing to do, because they all know he can speak in Japanese. And it's they kind of just do disrespectful things, or they're foreigners obsessed with guns. They're the Bullet Club. It's just they're meant to be heels.
But everybody loves them though, right? Like that's not a my perception is that like everyone loves them.
Everybody in America loves them.
Okay. Good. That's the answer I was trying to get at. Is
yes. So in I don't think that they don't have like a ton of heat on them. I would say actually Suzuki-gun is probably the most hated faction in New Japan at the moment, because they have a lot of interference.
Yeah.
But
they seem like dicks. Those guys are dicks.
Yeah, they're dicks, but they're fun. I like them.
Is one the Suzuki-gun guy that was in the boring match, the gauntlet? The guy he had like a full-on like Thunderbolt fantasy outfit on.
Oh, like Taichi! Wait,
like,
what were we talking about? I'm sorry. There's three dudes. There's Taichi, who's got like the hair, like he's got bangs and stuff.
Hair, and he had a mask on, and he had like a cool big collar, and like what looked like a sword.
So Taichi is hated in Japan because
he has like
a ring. He has a ring girl that comes out with him, Miho Abe, and one time her top broke off. Like she had like a bra thing, and the clasp just broke, and Taichi put it back on for her, and he got booed really aggressively for it. And now they chant "Go home, Taichi" a lot. But now he's getting over. He just moved up to heavyweight, and people seem to like him a lot more now. But I think he's great.
So I have a few. I took a few notes in the first few matches, and I have one. Oh, actually, the one thing I was going to say is I'll leave it for later, but I'll read out all the notes. Okay. My favorite match in the entire thing was the Rumble at the beginning.
Really?
Because of lots of extremely good characters.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, I wrote, "There's a ref in the Rumble." I didn't think there was a ref in WWE if I've seen it.
So
there is a ref.
Yeah,
in the Rumble in WWE.
On the outside.
Right.
There's like 4 of them or more.
Yeah.
My next note is everyone here a jobber, or are some of them normally high build?
They're not. I would say a lot of them are older guys. Some of them are like mid-carders that they're just trying to make sure get paid and stuff. I would say that there are a lot of them also are young lions that are either recently coming up or they're like about to graduate, like the guy with the teeth, the big dude, Kitamura. He's about to graduate. Yeah, he's definitely a guy to watch. If you can imagine, he was an amateur wrestler and got busted for steroid use, so now he's a pro wrestler. Yeah,
I did not guess that at all.
Yeah, I would say most of these guys are mid cards or juniors that weren't going to be in one of the junior matches. But yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question to see some of these guys win things.
So I put the next bullet point is a Bullet Club seems good, which I think I reiterated in several other bullet points.
It's good.
Lots of mask ripping here. I feel like there's a solid 2 minutes of people trying to take each other's masks off.
I feel like
is it very important.
I don't know stuff. I don't know about Japan, but in Lucha Libre, that's like incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah.
That's like the worst thing you can do.
It's true across wrestling, as I understand it.
Yeah. The other thing too with masks is like, especially in Lucha, if you keep your identity hidden long enough, if you have a mask versus mask match, you can draw a lot of money for it because,
Yeah.
like that's gonna essentially tell everybody who you are. So, you can get a big payday for a mask versus mask match.
There was a real good bit in WWE where Hornswoggle ripped the mask off El Torito, they were
God.
both like minis, but then El Torito had another mask underneath his mask.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
is it Sting that always dresses up as himself?
Yeah, he wears a Sting mask and then he takes it off and it's Sting. He like stands in the crowd and then he like rips off the mask. It's me.
That's pretty good.
Wrestling
Okay.
is dumb.
Next bullet point: Juicy Gino Gambino, and then I've just written extremely good.
Yeah, he's brand new. He actually just joined the Bullet Club. They went to Australia for the first time, like last month, I think it was. And yeah, he's just joined the Bullet Club. I think he's coming to New Japan full time, but that was the first time I had ever seen him. I didn't really know anything about him other than he's a big meatball.
Next line: doesn't seem to be as big a focus on physique here as in the WWE.
Sure, yeah, I would say that.
You'd be surprised. There's some
There's some beefy guys.
There's some guys in WWE that don't look great for sure.
Yeah, Chris Jericho. So
Shut your mouth about Rock and Roll Dad.
Yeah, don't pick on Chris Jericho.
just like, why is no one in WWE capable of growing a full beard? It's like you have a goatee.
Ken, I need to
No,
introduce you to a young man by the name of Daniel Bryan, sir.
Okay. There are exceptions that prove the rule. My next note is in all caps, Tokyo Pimp, with lots of exclamation points.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Yeah, Yujiro.
I was literally crying as he came out. This is why the Rumble's the best, because it showed me all these super weird like gimmicks.
Yeah.
And, like, he just comes to the ring with this like hot bunny woman. He was the only one who had like accompaniment, and he had a pimp cane, but he was wearing like leather shorts and a leather waistcoat, which said Tokyo Pimp on it multiple times.
He's
So he
also
was
the
great.
only Japanese member of the Bullet Club, if you care about that at all. But yeah,
I
his
definitely
ring
care about the
girl-
Bullet Club more now. Is there
His-
a Pimp Club T-shirt that I can buy?
I think it's his Pimp's Club.
Even better.
Yeah, Yujiro has Peter, who is his ring girl. Peter is dating Bad Luck Fale, who you saw in the Gauntlet match, which I think is kind of an odd pairing. I don't know what they talk about, but but whatever. To each their own, I guess. But yeah, I kind of really like Yujiro. It's not a great look, but I kind of like him anyway.
My next bullet point is ... love cheeseburger ? Question mark.
It's
So-
just cheeseburger.
I'm-
Not love cheeseburger.
I'm sure the guy kept calling him Love Cheeseburger, and I don't know why.
Maybe he loves cheeseburger.
Yeah.
So- Cheeseburger is extremely popular with Japanese women. They
I love
love
that guy.
him. He's like, I guess they think he's super cute, but he's like, 5'8" and like 120 pounds. He's like
That was, like,
tiny.
The commentator goes, "This guy is 105 pounds whilst holding a 5-pound rock," which I think is a really good joke.
Yeah, he's also a trainer at Ring of Honor because he's good at training jobbers to be jobbers,
Seems exactly accurate. My next note, and forgive me for the crassness of this note, but I was trying to be quick while typing it. Just says, "Cancer Man's shirt just says water on it in all caps."
I think we pointed that out, Erica.
My next note says, "Nobody's going to beat Cancer Man. He's beaten Cancer. He's going to beat the Rumble." My final line is, "This is exactly what I wanted. Cancer Man versus Love Cheeseburger for the finale."
Sam, you need to watch more wrestling.
Yeah.
I have several really, really short notes for the other matches, which I kind of did and didn't take notes for. Number one, Young Bucks are really obnoxiously chewing gum, and I hate them. My next
That
bullet
checks
point
out. That
is,
checks out.
my next bullet point is, I hate Young Bucks. Two separate bullet points. Next bullet point: Roppongi 3K are great. My favorite thing about Roppongi is that Dave Lang spent an entire podcast once talking about getting drunk in Roppongi.
Well, more than just
Rocky
one.
Romero, good. Aren't tag teams 2 people? First New Day, now these fellas.
Oh, there's three. There's trios. There's trios championship.
Roppongi 3K had the best outfits of any Japanese wrestlers, like
Yeah,
hands down.
Pretty good.
They're very
Their
good.
tights were good. Next match was match 3 because I think you told me to skip the next one.
Yeah.
My notes are British man !
Is that
Weird
Xavier
monster
Jr.?
dude? Question mark. Dynasty Warriors looking guy. Is that a sword? This match is boring. Those are my 4 bullet points for that match.
Yeah. Zack Sabre Jr. just won the New Japan Cup. He's really great this year, but he's not great in Wrestle Kingdom. But he's doing it. He's really actually you would really like him. He's a vegan and he's all about like yelling backstage about like people getting off their high horses, and then like on that note, Japan needs to bloody stop eating horses, things like that.
So very quickly, I forgot to mention in the what do you know about wrestling thing that one of my friends is an amateur wrestler and wrestles in several promotions in the UK. And I think he's quite good. And I went to see him in a Rumble, which was like his first match because he was still a jobber. And Zack Sabre Jr. was definitely in that Rumble.
Ooh.
So, or at least somebody who looked a lot like him was in
He's
that Rumble.
distinct. He's very skinny.
Yeah. So that was fun. Also, the guy, Will Ospreay, I saw a guy who was wrestled under the name Danny Jones who looked exactly like him. But yeah, Will Ospreay was great. I felt like all the outfits were subpar versus WWE stuff that I've seen, like all the in-ring attire.
The wings.
That was just like weird steampunk, like Plague Doctor. I was not there for that theme,
Doctor.
but it was well made.
Yeah, he tweeted about how difficult it was to get those wings on an airplane, and that he hoped everybody appreciated them.
Yeah, the wings were good, but I think he should have sacked off the mask and the top hat, because anytime I see a top hat, it reminds me of the Bim Bam episode where they dress Griffin in a top hat, and he keeps referring to himself as Jamiroquai's dad. Yeah, I didn't take many notes after this because I realized that taking notes was like actively distracting me from watching Wrestle Kingdom. So I only had a few notes, like a few things that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, Kenny Omega is my favorite person because he came to the ring in a full suit of Destiny armor, and he was just he was really interesting to watch. He was fun. That match was probably my second favorite to the Rumble, and like was probably the actual favorite in terms of quality. His trousers are great. Like the big Omega symbol on the butt, and the fact that they kind of look like a superhero outfit was really good. I really liked. I didn't like the last match at all, and I didn't like the Hito and Suzuki.
Goto
and Suzuki. Close.
Hiroki is. Don't worry about it.
Oh, there we go. I knew they were calling him Hero. Yeah, I didn't like that match at all. I like the Jay White match. I thought that his coat coming to the ring was extremely good, and I remember that specifically. So it must have been very cool. And I was literally like Googling Jay White coat, so obviously that's a good time. I had, I think, taking the notes at the beginning, like, I was like, I'm gonna have to take notes because it's 6 hours, and I did. I've already, even though it was like 5 hours ago, forgotten a lot of the things that happened in it. But like, I enjoyed it so much more when I wasn't trying to take notes. And yeah, the Will Ospreay match was really, really good. Will Ospreay in particular was fun to watch, although his outfit is terrible. One of my other notes, what I did actually make down here was is it a law that all wrestlers have bad hair? The Japanese wrestlers in particular had extremely bad anime hair.
Yeah.
One of the guys in the Fatal 4-Way that has the
Wrestling is
like
anime.
red ends or dyed tips on his
Hero
hair.
Moon. Yeah.
Yeah, like everyone who had trousers with like tassels on the boots, I was instantly against. I was like, that's not aerodynamic. Also, oh yeah, last question, very last question. Do all the heels chew gum? Is that a thing?
Honestly, I've never noticed it, and I guess it's a thing.
Because like the Young Bucks came down the ramp obnoxiously chewing gum, and I was like, oh, these guys are pricks. And then like when they got to the ring, I was like, oh, they'll spit it out and it'll be a cool thing. They'll like push it in someone's face. But they didn't. They just obnoxiously chewed gum for the entire match. Like being thrown out of the ring, off the floor, like bounced around. Still like gum in their mouths. So and Cody did the same thing. Cody came to the ring chewing gum, and I was like, come on, man. Like
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a thing.
I had the thought that it might be a cover for speaking. So like when they're giving directions to the other wrestler, they have to talk. And I was like, maybe chewing the gum is a cover for that, and they're just not good at talking in the ring. But then I was like, wait, Cody's doing it. Cody's great.
Maybe they are there to kick ass and chew bubble gum, but they weren't quite out of bubble gum yet, so they need to finish.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Do you have a better explanation? I don't think so.
Speaking of wrestling and bubblegum, what do you guys think of John Cena playing Duke Nukem?
Oh my god.
We talked about this. We had a conversation on the podcast.
You're right.
Especially because we also talked about how he, like, everybody thought he was going to be BJ Blazkowicz, but then actually was like, never mind.
Yeah.
Duke Nukem.
Anyways, Japan.
Look, yeah, look, I'm here for it. I'm
Sam
here for
is a 7-year-old boy.
Yeah. I went to a wrestling themed 30th birthday party where we all had to dress up as wrestlers, and I dressed as John Cena, which is the third time in my life I've dressed up as John Cena for a costume party. And at this particular costume party, they were handing out wristbands, and I have kept this John Cena one on my water bowl because I think hustle, loyalty, respect is the funniest catchphrase that anyone has ever had.
It's not funny.
It's really funny.
It's a way of
Also,
life.
I'm kidding.
the professor of thugonomics is extremely funny.
Isn't he a doctor? Isn't it the doctor of thugonomics? Or is it professor? I don't even remember.
Yeah, he teaches thugonomics. He doesn't practice it, so I think he's a professor.
You should subscribe to a free trial for the network to watch like the story of John Cena. There's like a video track you can watch, like 15 matches or historic matches of his, and they go back to his old shit when he was the prototype. It is hilarious.
My thing about John Cena, a lot of people talk to me about how John Cena is extremely, extremely good at being wrestled to. Like, he takes wrestling very well, but is not like, but the character they made for him was terrible, and the fact that he couldn't lose was really annoying.
John Cena the wrestler is really lame. John Cena the person, pretty cool.
I'm terrible. I'm not a good wrestling fan because I like everything about John Cena. I like John Cena the wrestler. I like watching John Cena beat everyone. I like John Cena as a person. I like everything about John Cena.
I really like John Cena as well. I really like John Cena and the trademark.
He could just be the world heavyweight champion forever, and I'd be fine with it.
Okay, so back thoughts on the last match? You didn't like the last match?
No, I fell asleep during the last match. I did have to move upstairs to watch the wrestling in bed because I didn't want to force my fiance to watch 6 hours of Japanese wrestling.
It's called culture.
So I took my laptop upstairs and finished it off in bed the last 3 hours. And obviously I was lying on the bed, having a great time. I was very, very happy after watching a good match with Kenny and I can't remember the other guy's name now.
Jericho.
Oh, and Jericho, yeah. Yeah, and I was like, that was a great match. That was a really cool main event. Oh, there's another match. And just kind of fell asleep during it because it wasn't super interesting. I think I had a similar problem to what Andre said in our private chat, not on this podcast, but that if you didn't know anyone in the match, you weren't that interested. And of course, there were a couple of matches that had British people in, and I'm always like, British people in things. I'm like, oh, hello. Where are you from? Harpenden in Essex. I instantly Googled them all and was like, what part of England are they from? So that there's not many people here, so there's a chance that someone I know knows them. It'd be an exciting time.
There
But
was
yeah,
one
that was it.
other. There was one other gimmick I wanted to tell you about because it's not. They didn't talk about it at all. In the Rumble, there's like an older dude named Manabu Nakanishi, and his shirt says Monster Morning on it.
I saw that.
And Monster Mornings are just the really large breakfasts he loves to eat every morning. And he
Great.
takes pictures and posts them on Twitter. He takes some of the young lions out for Monster Mornings, and it's just like the table's just full of like a ton of little bowls of food. He just loves to eat a really big breakfast.
You ever seen like The Rock's cheat day?
Oh,
No.
It's like 60 pancakes and like,
Oh my god.
like The Rock's cheat day is he eats like 4 pizzas
Oh my god.
that's insane.
for a lunch.
I once went out for pizza with Joe Quesada, ex-publisher from Marvel Comics, and he ordered 2 pizzas and slowly and methodically ate through both of them.
That's impressive.
Yeah, he was a big guy, but still, damn.
All right.
I think I should pull out at this point because it's about 1:30, and I'll let the serious, real wrestling talk occur.
Serious.
Not just my comments on chewing gum and hating the Young Bucks. Thanks everyone for letting me participate, even though I was bad and left it all right till the last minute. Yeah.
Thanks for watching it. I know it was a slog for you. I appreciate your effort.
I watched it wrong. I think next time I'll know what not to do, if that makes sense.
I think next time I'll pick a storyline and not a whole pay-per-view.
I think it's similar to me with anime that my attention can super drift if I'm not paying attention. If I'm not super into it, my attention can just completely drop off. And there were a couple of matches where I was like, oh, wait, I don't think I've watched this match yet, and I had to rewind it a little bit. Thanks for putting us onto it, because it's always good to broaden your horizon to something new. I've never watched Japanese pro wrestling, and I have actually always had like a mild interest in wrestling and the sort of thing that I would like to get into. But I mean, we talked previously, I can't get into things unless I know or have seen every facet of them. I'm sure we'll come to this at some point when we do a comic review and someone's like, oh, let's just read this volume of Captain Marvel. And I'm like, okay, give me 3 weeks to read the first 200 issues.
I put some links in the chat. Kota Ibushi versus Yoshihiko and Kenny Omega versus someone that you should watch.
I read a very long Medium article about the Golden Lovers.
Yes.
That's like my favorite thing.
Yeah, that's nice. But just watch these videos I linked to.
Oh, also, Cody is incredible. Big fan.
He's
Best
pretty
heel
good.
in the business, in my opinion.
He's incredibly good, and I can't believe the WWE let him go. It's very strange.
He asked for it because they were treating him like shit.
Yeah.
He was a jobber.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks everyone. I'll speak to you all next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. New Japan.
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay.
The Rumble.
So, the Rumble. I missed this match. It wasn't. I don't know. I didn't see it.
Okay. Well, I mean, pretty much it's kind of meant to be just so everybody gets paid.
Yeah.
So, there was some surprise entrance. It was Delirious, who I don't really have anything to say about him other than he wrestles barefoot, and that scares me. Like, I don't want to see anybody break their toes.
Rusev wrestles barefoot.
Does he? Ugh, scary.
He needs to put some, I'm not gonna quote him, but yeah.
Yeah, Cheeseburger. Well, I mean, he's been in the last couple of Rumbles, I think, too, but it's just always nice to see Cheeseburger whenever he's out. And then, of course, Masahito Kakihara, who was a New Japan wrestler for a short amount of time, beat cancer recently, and then was raising money for another wrestler, Yoshihiro Takayama, who was paralyzed from the shoulders down last year due to like a spinal cord injury in a match. And yeah, a lot of wrestlers, Suzuki in particular, has also been raising a lot of money for him. They were good friends, and it just, his family's struggling to take care of him, and so it's it's feel good. The dude beat cancer. He's beating the Rumble, as Sam said, and it's just it's never meant to be amazing, but it's feel good at least.
Allison and Alex, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Rumble, because Rumbles are usually like a good, fun, goofy thing for like someone who's not into wrestling to watch.
That's what I got into.
I feel like it was actually the hardest match for me to watch, mostly because I feel like the other matches had a lot more going on. And I guess there's a lot going on here, but I feel like a lot of the time they just kind of like shoving each other around. And I'm like, considering this is literally the first wrestling I've ever watched, I'm like, okay, I don't feel like they're wrestling. They're just kind of shoving each other around. Oh, I guess that guy's pinned now, or I guess that guy's leaving. It was a lot. So it was a little bit confused, honestly.
Yeah, I would say the same, but it did have the most amount of dumb per minute, so I could appreciate that.
It did, yeah. And it was fun seeing all the different gimmicks, which I feel like was the thing that spoke to me most, was all the dumb, gimmicks of all the wrestlers, and more so than the sport, it was just like, oh, his thing is big breakfast, which I still have kind of latched on to. I love that gimmick, and if I was a wrestler, I would be doing the exact same thing.
Rumbles are kind of a double-edged sword, because it's like you do get to see all the gimmicks and stuff, but when they don't have the full ring to work, it doesn't produce as the quality of wrestling is not as good.
Yeah. You just get to see a lot of like silly stuff.
Yeah.
I think I appreciate the silly stuff, such as dude walking out with a stuffed hamburger, stuffed cheeseburger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like for me, obviously I know who most of these people are. I would say Chino Gambino is really the only one I don't know well. For me, it's a lot about seeing the young lions and going in and seeing what they can do. And it's kind of, they open shows a lot, but they don't get to work very long matches. And so it's kind of nice to see them. Like Leo Tonga is kind of my young lion to watch, other than the fact that I think he's very handsome. But he's really good in the ring, and he's been very interesting. Kitamura is also a young lion who I thought is also kind of one to watch. Toa Hinare just graduated into the main roster as well, and that's what the New Japan Rumble is for me anyway.
Is there a benefit to winning the Rumble? Like, do you get like a title shot for one of the things, or like a trophy, or a plat? I don't know. Do you get anything, or is it just you get okay? You get
paid.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't even remember who won last year. That's how much it kind of doesn't matter, honestly.
Okay, that's disappointing. At least like in like the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale and WrestleMania, like there's a trophy and people get their name on it. I feel like they should do that. But
maybe they could do a trophy. I don't know. I don't watch every bit of like the behind the scenes stuff. So there are interviews and stuff. Maybe they hold a trophy.
Yeah, but also New Japan is like way less into like the pomp and circumstance of like, oh, we've got all these like specific awards for all these things, so we can have all these talking points about all our wrestlers.
Okay.
It's just like it's a lot about like, oh, here's the wrestling they did, not oh, they have like this streak. At least from my experience with it, I'm not super deep on it, but it's a lot of they have this like storied history with this person and with this person.
So I just looked up who won last year. It's actually a wrestler, the only wrestler for New Japan that I actively hate, and that is Michael Elgin.
Yes.
And he won that last year, and I would say that that's probably because he is built up to be kind of the most popular dude. He just didn't have another match to be in, I think.
That's not like a surprise return. I thought I read something.
It might be. That was kind of where I got into New Japan, so I don't actually know for sure what his background is there, and don't like him very much. So
okay. Well, so moving on to the next match, which was Young Bucks versus who?
Roppongi 3K.
Okay. It's got 3K, so I thought there were 3 people, so I thought it was in the 6-man tag. Okay. So yes, Young Bucks were the challengers for the tag IWGP
Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship.
Oh,
I got it written
yes.
down. That's why.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
This was a match I enjoyed because I know who the Young Bucks are just from reading about wrestling and hearing about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
So Roppongi 3K are kind of two recent dojo graduates who they were young lions, and then they just came back from excursion in the United States, where they were called the Tempura Boys because their names are Sho and Yo, and Sho Yo is soy sauce. But the Young Bucks are their gimmick is kind of being wrestling fanboys. So a lot of their things, like they have a move called like the Indie Taker and things like that. Their finisher is the cease and desist, which is because they recently received a cease and desist letter from the WWE for using the too sweet, and they can't use that anymore. And
It's fucking stupid.
yeah, apparently, if they actually decided to go to court with it, the Young Bucks would probably win.
Yeah, it's just who
because
wants to do that. They don't have.
yeah, they don't have the money compared to the WWE, who has endless money pretty much. So
Yeah.
But yeah, what I thought was funny about the cease and desist though is that it's a combination of the sharpshooter and the crossface. So the sharpshooter is Bret Hart's finisher, who famously was fucked over by the WWE at some point, and they just don't have they didn't have a great relationship. It's better now. And the crossface is Chris Benoit's finisher, who famously murdered his whole family. So the idea of them putting that in a move together and calling it the cease and desist is very funny to me.
Murder suicide.
Murder suicide. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think of this one?
I feel like I don't have a whole lot to say about the individual matches, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was entertaining. This was like one of the more memorable ones for me, mostly because I feel like Young Bucks kind of have their gimmick down. I guess they know how to be entertaining to a crowd, and Roppongi 3K had a very they had the good outfits too. So
yeah,
I don't know if I have much more to say, to be honest.
There's the moment where they just start like kicking each other's partner like in the back.
Yeah,
like they're like I don't remember which one is which, but
Matt and Yo are the ones getting kicked.
Yeah. So they're just like on their knees, and I think like their backs have been giving out, and that was like part of the match. I was gonna say, was this each person is just kicking their partner in the back over and over?
Yeah,
and like
I was gonna ask if this was the match with all the back injuries.
Yeah. Matt and Yo are both legitimately hurt in their backs, like before this even happened. And yeah, so I mean, in New Japan, if you're injured, unless you are really legitimately like gonna die, they always go after your injury because like why wouldn't they? They were trying to sell it, But
so there's that, and then there's also like the the dueling submission holds, which is pretty fun when
the slaps.
The slapping each other in the face, and then there's also the moment where is it Nick who's in he's like trying to tap out, but then Matt grabs his hand. He's like, "No, you can't tap out."
The opposite, but yes.
Like I said, I don't know. I know who the Young Bucks are. I don't know anything about them. That's what's done their fate. They have literal baby faces.
They do.
I felt like that match in particular felt like it drug on a little bit longer than it needed to me.
Yeah.
I was kind of like watching it. I was like, I kind of hope not every match is this drawn out.
And then they all were.
That one I noticed it more than the other ones.
Yeah.
So moving on, the next match is the Never Openweight 6-man tag team championship featuring Bullet Club, who are the champions, versus Chaos versus Michael Elgin and War Machine versus Suzuki Gun versus Taguchi Japan.
Yeah. So before we do anything, I want to say Mike Elgin is a nightmare in my life. I don't like that he wrestles for New Japan. I don't like that he's employed with New Japan. He's a garbage person. Essentially he had his own wrestling promotion in Canada, and he employed a guy who sexually assaulted somebody
Ugh.
The lady who was sexually assaulted contacted him on Twitter, and she was like, "Hey, this is a thing that happened to me." And he's like, "Okay, then call the cops about it." And then, if that's not bad enough, he stayed in contact with her and started cheating on his wife with that lady, and said she posted a lot of his tweets. I mean, a lot of his texts to her, which included lines like "blow me" or "don't text me" and things like that. And he's just a shit person. I don't like him. I hope he never wins a title. I don't want to see him in New Japan. It's just, I got all my issues with Mike Elgin. That being said, War Machine is great. They just signed to NXT. I'm super excited about it. They're like high flyers, but they're enormous.
Yeah, they're really cool. That was what I
Yeah.
took out. I could not follow this match. Like, even as someone who's watched a fair bit of wrestling, this match was like, I was like, I can't even track what's happening.
I like that Zack Sabre Jr. was in it, and that was about all I could follow in this match.
Yeah, the only thing I will also say is that the winners Chaos, which were Beretta, Tomohiro Ishii, who, if you ask me most days who my favorite wrestler is, it is Tomohiro Ishii, and Toriano. They're from Chaos, and Chaos was started by Shinsuke Nakamura, which was a fun fact for Pat, but he's going to watch basketball right now. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm taking the dog out, but I can hear you because I have a wireless headset, so it's great.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all I had to say about it. If anybody else has anything else they want to say about it. All right, moving on.
So that brings us to Cody, the American Nightmare versus Kota Ibushi, which was the first match that was like, okay, I'm into this, and that's because I knew who both people were, which was like the first time on this show where I was like, oh, I know everyone who's in this match. And it's good. Kota Ibushi is one of the best wrestlers on the planet, and he's incredible, and everyone should love him.
Yes. I'm constantly afraid he's going to die in the ring, though, because he's like always taking humongous neck bumps for no reason.
Yeah, he's had multiple like spinal injuries.
Yeah. But the other thing I think is funny is that the WWE owns the name Cody Rhodes, so they made Brandy's wrestling name Brandy Rhodes, so they can say Cody and Brandy Rhodes without an issue.
That's really good. I did not know that's why it was like that.
I love that.
Yeah, it's real dumb. So this being like the first singles match that Allison and Alex were able to see on this show, thoughts?
Did we skip this match? We skipped some.
I know that we skipped some, but I don't remember which ones we did.
Why?
It was just that there wasn't any setup to it, and it wasn't for a title.
And
we were low on time.
This match is just, I mean, oh man, Cody Rhodes is a crossroads to Ibushi off the apron onto the ramp. It's brutal.
It is. It's pretty good.
That's the first time the crossroads has ever looked good to me.
I also liked when Ibushi misses that dive onto Cody and knocks Brandy down and picks her up. And
yes.
Cody like decks him in the face, and they just both fall to the ground, and they're just like cackling.
Yeah, because it was a setup by Brandy. Brandy's a real good heel.
Yeah, she's
nice. Alex, do you have any thoughts on this match, or
you didn't see it either?
We watched this one.
We did watch this one.
Yeah, this the one we watched. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely watched this one because I remember Brandy being all vocal, especially in the latter half.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, she's yelling at the ref and trying to distract him and stuff like that.
I thought this match was super cool.
Yeah, I would have liked it actually to be longer. It was like 15 minutes, which I think is one of the shorter matches.
All the matches had an hour time limit.
Thankfully, nobody used them.
No, yeah.
But yeah.
Cody Rhodes is one of my first favorite wrestlers. So like when I first got into it, the Rhodes Scholars was a thing, and I fucking loved that tag team. It was Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow on WWE. And I don't know what if people at large liked them, but I thought they were amazing. And so I started following him early on when I got into wrestling, and I thought that this was a really cool match, and I thought it like that both of them wrestled really well, and the stuff with Brandy was really good. It was just like, it was a little bit cliche in some ways, but otherwise it was like, it's a great like first singles match to see for watching wrestling for the first time and paying attention, because it's like, that's like a classic formula, and it was really good.
Yeah. Kenny Omega pretty much moved to Japan specifically to wrestle with Kota Ibushi. He's that good.
Mhm.
So, you know, they had a tag team for a while, which Andre touched on for a little while. It was a boys love themed tag team called the Golden Lovers.
That was
which
Sam.
Oh, it was Sam? I thought it was
Yeah,
you.
he mentioned that he read a Medium thing.
And they recently reunited, and they are tag teaming again now.
That's that's kind of an interesting background to this match. Actually, is that while Ibushi and Kenny, not Ibushi and Kenny, Kenny and Cody are kind of both at the top of the Bullet Club and kind of competing for control at this point.
Mhm.
Cody loses this match, and then we'll get into the Jericho Kenny thing later. But yeah, so this, like, I figured that would have like been more of a setback for Cody.
Yeah.
Because shortly after this isn't that when the Kenny got kicked out of the Bullet Club, or was that further after?
He's not officially kicked out.
Well, he got beaten up by
Cody
elite.
and Kenny are feuding as to who is the leader at the moment. So you're either on Team Kenny or Team Cody, and that pretty much started the day after, where Cody goes to jump Ibushi. This is like the New Year's Dash, which is the following show the next day. Cody goes to jump Ibushi, and Kenny like gets in the way, and there was like there's been a few other things since then. But yeah, that was, I didn't realize that was kind of the setup to that, because it's just
it was supposed to be an intercontinental title, but Cody lost it, I think, or Ibushi lost it. I don't know. There was supposed to be a title on the line, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
Next match. Are we done with that one?
I'm done.
Okay. The IWGP Tag Team Championship, Killer Elite Squad versus Sonata and Evil. I don't remember anything. It was a 6-man, right?
No.
Was it the 6-man? Oh no, it wasn't. You're right. Oh right. I don't remember anything about this match.
This is one of the ones we skipped.
Yes.
Okay.
Evil and Sonata have really cool costumes. Otherwise, I thought Killer Elite Squad seemed fucking awful. And like wrestlers I never want to watch wrestle again.
Lance Archer's ability to hide water bottles on his body is very impressive to me.
It was that one. That was like,
was,
I think that was what made me laugh most in this entire event, was when he just kept pulling water bottles out of just nowhere.
I just thought it was gross. And like,
it's like,
oh boy, if you start watching
him spraying water, not him hiding the water. That part wasn't gross. It was like, I don't know.
So yeah, that I didn't care for that match. I didn't care much for the next match either. The Never Openweight Championship hair versus hair match with Minoru Suzuki versus Hiroki Goto.
So
yeah,
the concept of hair versus hair is interesting to me, but that's basically it.
Donald Trump and Vince McMahon had a hair versus hair match where they had surrogates wrestle for them.
But it actually means something in Japan. I don't know. I actually like this match quite a bit.
And with the hair these guys have, it definitely means something.
Yeah.
Whoever loses gets the better haircut.
Fair, but I thought it was pretty cool. I liked the match a lot, and I thought that the concept made more sense in this setting than it does when the WWE does this, because they've done it multiple times and it's always stupid. But here it's felt like it had a little bit more weight. And like I really was pulling for Goto, because even though I don't know them at all, he just seemed like such a more likable guy, and I like felt invested in it, even though I didn't know them coming in.
Yeah, for me, I never cared about Goto at all. Up until this match. This match is what made me like Goto. So yeah, I would say for me, like, I mean, obviously in Japan, hair and shaving your head means a lot more than it does in America. But I really like this match a lot, and it's part of it has to do with the young lions, actually. So Suzuki's kind of known for, like, I mean, he's kind of like, in my opinion, probably one of the scariest guys in wrestling. Like, he seems legitimately scary. He is a co-founder of Pancrase, which is like one of the first MMA organizations. A lot of wrestlers don't like wrestling him because he hits legitimately super hard. And he's kind of known for beating up the young lions around the ring after matches, which is part of their training. They have to accept it, So he's kind of known for beating up the young lions. So at some point, the Suzuki-gun has been interfering in matches all year long. So they had specifically no seconds, like there would be nobody else in the ring with them. And so I think it was Taichi, and I don't remember who else. It was definitely Taichi, though. They tried to come out and help Suzuki at some point, and the young lions all kind of banded together and worked together to keep him out, which I just thought was really fun because they've been accepting beatings all year long from Suzuki. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was really fun. I also Suzuki is obsessed with hitting a Gotch style pile driver because he was trained by Karl Gotch, and he's just really into that finisher. And so there was at some point Goto was being choked out and he was like blacking out in the ref arm checks, and he would have called it on the third one, but Suzuki like flipped him around real quick to do a Gotch style pile driver on him, and Goto was able to kick out of that. So it was part of like Suzuki's obsession with the Gotch style pile driver, and whether or not he needs to finish on that. So he lost the match because he wanted to finish on that.
I feel like the best wrestling matches have a narrative all of their own without you don't necessarily even need to know the storyline coming in. If it's a really great match, it shouldn't matter. And I kind of felt that from this. Not like, I don't want to hyperbolize. Like, I'm not saying it was like one of the best matches ever, but it was just really solid. I will say that at this point, with the end of that one, I was kind of like, these have all been really predictable outcomes for these matches. And I felt like that was kind of a theme that stuck around. There was really only one surprise to me, which we can talk about later. Even though I don't really know the characters outside of like Cody and Chris Jericho and a little bit about Kenny Omega, like I did feel like the outcomes were fairly predictable throughout.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say that I feel like that with a lot of New Japan stuff. Not all of it, but yeah, I would say it's probably fairly predictable. And
that's not even necessarily a bad thing for professional wrestling. Sometimes predictability is okay as long as the matches are good and the storylines are good. But
what did you guys think about the head shaving part, where his Suzuki-gun tries to like drag him out, and then they bring him. He shrugs them off and goes back, takes a chair from the announcer, just like slaps the chair that was there for him and puts his own chair in, shaves his own head.
It was pretty good. I liked it. I thought like the actual amount of hair that he shaved off, I was like, come on.
He came bald the next day.
yeah, but that's I also did not want to actually watch him sit there and get every piece of hair. So.
Yeah, that's fair. He did kind of just shave like 3/4 of his back mohawk.
I thought that was pretty good, how he only got like part of it and then walked out all angry. But I think it would have been better if he left his hair like that.
Maybe if he had leaned into that, I would have liked it more, having seen, if I watched future ones.
Instead of hair versus, like, it's not just hair versus hair, like you have to let the person style your hair. Any thoughts from Allison or Alex?
Not in particular. I don't really have any, like Allison, I don't really have match to match commentary.
IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship 4-way match: Marty Scurll versus Will Ospreay versus Kushida versus Hiromu Takahashi. A number of rivalries come together in this bout as Squirrel defends his title against 3 worthy challengers. Recently took the title off Ospreay, who gets his rematch here, but a long-time rivalry between Ospreay and Kushida gives the latter a claim for a title opportunity as well.
Yeah, so I think the juniors division in New Japan is really excellent, especially these 4 guys in particular. I think Kushida is actually a really technically good wrestler with like a bad gimmick.
Yeah, everyone in this match I was really into except Marty Squirrel because he's like the worst kind of heel who doesn't wrestle.
If you notice too, with the moonsault that Ospreay did off of the light tower, which was amazing, and I was here for it. But Marty Scurll was completely unwilling to catch him, and it was just like Hiromu and Kushida catching him, and then Marty Scurll just falls down with everybody else.
Yeah,
that was very funny.
But I thought this was a fun match. That was one of the ones where I know who Ospreay is, so I enjoyed the match.
Yeah,
I could root for somebody.
One of my favorite parts were specifically when Marty Scurll tapes Hiromu to the barricades, and then he goes back at some point into the medical kit that he got that from to get like some kind of powder. I don't know, it was a chalk or smelling salts or something.
I don't think I get some nose fork in his hand and throw it on his face.
Yeah, and then he threw it at Kushida, but he left the kit too close to Hiromu, and Hiromu cuts himself out with the scissors, and then goes that
was a good moment. Yeah. It's like, forgot. There's scissors here.
There was a lot of good theatrics in that match, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And that was the first time Will Ospreay has ever beaten Marty Scurll, and I was surprised. I was legitimately surprised by it because, 1, it's just never happened before, and 2, I figured when it did happen, they're both English wrestlers, so I figured it would happen in England. They both wrestle for Ring of Honor also, so I figured it would probably happen at a Ring of Honor British show, but it did not.
Not knowing anything about either of them, I kind of assumed Ospreay would win coming into the match because I was like, oh, he's the one that's doing the most work. But yeah, that was just from someone who doesn't really know.
I could have seen that match going any direction based on like the things that were happening. Like, oh, it would have been great if like Takahashi got taped to the thing and then he broke out and then he won like at the last second or something.
Well, I think also the fact that Takahashi pinned Will Ospreay and then Scurll grabbed the ref out with his umbrella. So I think that is probably going to set up a future match between the two of them, which I'm here for. I love Hiromu. I love him. So I'm excited to see that. And Will Ospreay, the other thing too is that's kind of the match Will Ospreay does. He's always firing on all cylinders all the time. So I guess I wasn't surprised that he was winning because that's just what you expect from him, even if he's losing.
He's my favorite kind of wrestler too. I like wrestlers that are super like aerial and do a lot of like really impressive, flashy looking stuff. So I was happy to see him win.
Yeah, that was the most entertaining part for me is some of the aerial stuff where I was like, whoa, people are doing that? Okay. Because I knew that like in theory that was a thing for wrestling, but it was like to see it, I was like, okay, this is pretty legit.
I'll show you a video of a match Will Ospreay had people in the wrestling community very divided. It led to a match between, I think, Ospreay and Vader, and that was a whole thing. Anyway, next match. Alex, any thoughts? Okay. IWGP Intercontinental Championship, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Switchblade with Jay White.
Yeah, I'm wearing his shirt today.
Yeah.
Stupid necklace guy.
Yeah,
I don't like Jay White.
That's 100% fair. I feel like at this point I'm the only person who really loves Jay White.
I don't remember anything about this match except I didn't like Jay White.
So Jay White, was a young lion. Also, he like if you talk to the trainers who
Right.
are like Yuji Nagata and Jushin Thunder Liger and some of the other old guys, they really like him a lot because he works super hard and he's got like a really good work ethic. And he'll, if you tell him do 1,000 Hindu squats before breakfast, he will do 2,000 Hindu squats before breakfast. And so, it's just like I just really like him a lot. And as a young lion, he was a huge baby face, and he came back from excursion with this new Switchblade character that I'm not sure works for him.
So is this I'm looking at his nicknames, and one of them on Wikipedia is Knife Pervert? Is this like a translation thing?
No, we had a full
No.
talk about this.
Yes. So Beretta,
missed
the
that
one of the
conversation.
guys who won in the gauntlet match, Beretta was tag teaming with him at some point, and he's like, "Yeah, you're gonna watch me with my best friend Chucky T and Knife Pervert Jay White," and it kind of just stopped after that.
Huh.
Yeah.
So,
Marty
Okay.
Skrull recently called him Dick Blade, and so I'm thinking that one's gonna stick for him too, unfortunately.
That's too bad. That's
But
you know
Knife
what?
Pervert's very funny.
You know what I am extremely here for?
What?
Hiroshi Tanahashi's hair.
Okay, so
He looks like a create your own Monster Hunter character.
Yep.
I have a lot of thoughts on the hair.
Is it?
Tanahashi,
It is very good. It is very good. You should have that
Tanahashi
hair.
had better hair, believe it or not. He had this big luxurious ponytail, and he cut it and dyed it dark for a movie. So the hair that you saw are extensions that he had braided in. That's why you could see the braids on the side of his head. And the fans freaked the fuck out when he cut his hair, and they were not here for it at all, including me.
I'm pretty
Well,
into this hair from this match.
It's beautiful, and I hope he grows it back because
He is. He's working on
It
it.
did look fake though. I will
He-
say.
yeah. But oh my god, he is just the most luxurious. Like that is goals right there,
Yes. I'm with you.
and I'm glad he won. And
Yeah.
Jay White.
Me too. I like Jay White. I think I would like Jay White with a different gimmick. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
I don't even
I
know
mean,
what his
I'm wearing
gimmick
his
is.
old gimmick T-shirt, so like, I'm with you.
I liked him in the ring, and I thought that the match was very good. But definitely when they were playing the hype videos, because I'm not familiar with him at all, and when they were playing the hype videos, I was like, "This fucking guy, fuck off."
Who is this knife pervert?
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's like-
Yes.
This is like the third I'm an edgy white dude guy I've seen like today, and I'm done with that.
Yeah.
And I gotta watch Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho in a little bit.
Yeah. I think he'll get there. Hopefully, eventually, either he'll figure this one out, or I mean, he has a belt now. He didn't get one here, but he has one now. And he had a really good match last weekend with Hangman Page, who actually wasn't in the show, which was surprising. But yeah, Tanahashi has been dealing with a lot of injuries. He's an older guy. He was the Okada of the previous generation. He was the top dog for a long time. And he had an MRI done like a couple weeks before the show, and turns out he has arthritis and water in his knee, and so that's why Jay White was going after the knee the entire time. And also there was like a weird miscommunication part that I thought was kind of rough, where Jay White climbs up to the top rope and Tanahashi like rolls into like the opposite corner. So I think they probably said something to each other and didn't know what was going on. But
yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, but I think Jay White has a really good deadlift German suplex that I think is super impressive, and I think he has the skills. He just needs to figure out the gimmick.
Yeah, he seems talented. Like you can't really teach talent, but you can change gimmicks. So
Yeah. So hopefully they make. He was like the blue-eyed like baby face young lion the whole time, and now he's like the opposite, and it's just not great.
anytime wrestlers try to be edgy, it always sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that is always a bad gimmick. There's one wrestler who did it right. It's The
Yeah.
Undertaker. The Undertaker is the one wrestler who did it right.
Any other thoughts on Tanahashi versus Knife Pervert? Okay, moving on to the IWGP US Heavyweight Championship no DQ match. Kenny Omega versus Rock and Roll Dad Chris Jericho. Kenny Omega is the defending champion.
There was one thing I wanted to say specifically about the lineup of these two matches is that they were billed as double main events instead of just the last one being the main event. And Naito and Jericho actually got into like a bit of an argument where Naito was talking about how that New Japan will never be the top company as long as they keep humoring the WWE and things like that. And so, I thought that kind of leads up something for Jericho and Naito if Jericho decides to come back, but we'll see.
I will say, like, this match overall was like the most WWE thing of the night, and I mean that in good ways and in bad ways. Like, I thought the match itself was kind of a snooze fest, frankly. I don't know.
Oh, I was really into it. Just because I really enjoy Chris Jericho. And
Hey, man, I love Chris Jericho, but
him putting Red Shoes' son in the walls of Jericho,
Yes.
real good.
That was very good. That was like probably my most like memorable moment of the whole thing was like this is your son or whatever he was saying.
Look at
He was
your
like,
son.
look at your son. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, Pat, I don't know if that was lost on you, but the Red Shoes, who's the referee, his son is a young lion right now, and he put him in the walls of Jericho. It was like, look at your son.
yeah, that part didn't make a lot of sense to me, to be honest, but that makes more sense. And that's good. And I thought Jericho was okay in it, considering, like, he's getting up there.
He's in his 40s.
47, I think.
Yeah. And I think his promo work is like pretty fantastic. I think it's some of the best that has been in wrestling for as long as he's been at it. Like, to be clear, when I threw shade at him and Kevin Owens earlier, that was primarily on the Kevin Owens part of that duo. But I can't stand Kevin Owens. I thought that you just made the list part of it was pretty fantastic.
He's a zoo enthusiast, but yeah, that's the no DQ with the having to like figure out ways to get out of like the walls of Jericho because you can't do rope breaks and stuff. So him getting the cold spray, being like, "Hey, Jericho,"
that bit was good. Yeah.
And then he does like the weird like spray it down his pants.
Yeah. I think part of the reason I didn't get into this match as much is I think I'm probably the only person on the planet, but I don't like Kenny Omega. I don't really get why people are so into him. I think he's like kind of like, I see him as kind of like snotty and annoying. I don't know. Every bit that I see him in, I just don't like him that much.
Have you seen any of his like interviews?
A little bit here and there.
Okay. He was on Giant Bomb actually. He played Street Fighter with Jason and Dan at some point. But I think he comes across as extremely likable in those types of things. But like, so it kind of seems like a bit that he's coming off.
Yeah. That's what it is. As a dude, he seems fine. I mean, I don't have anything against him. If I saw, like, I don't remember that video specifically, but he seems fine. It was more just like he came in and I was like, is that a Destiny costume? That's why, like, I was saying to you guys, like, can you please walk me through this? And like, it's cool that he's in the video games, but like that costume looked like shit.
I mean, his like one of his moves is the V trigger, which is a Street Fighter thing.
Yeah.
The one-winged angel is his finisher move. That match ended on a Tekken 7 logo.
Yep, I know. So I think I could grow to like him, but like I would need to watch him more, I think. And which just happens with wrestlers for me sometimes. I don't like him at first, and then I grow to like him. And I didn't like that he won. I really wanted Jericho to win.
But of course he did, because Jericho was just like a free agent.
Yeah. I expected him to win, but I really wanted Jericho to win.
So the one issue I had with this match really was that the no DQ rules kind of made no sense, because sometimes the rope breaks. Well, I mean, Red Shoes was counting for the rope break at some point, and Jericho was like, it's no DQ, it's no DQ. So, and then at another point though, Kenny grabs the ropes and they let go. So I don't know.
I think that was supposed to be like like leveraged a little. He got like leveraged a little bit, and Jericho. It was like so late in the match, Jericho just like kind of collapsed.
Okay.
But
That's
that was
fair.
kind of like, I mean, wrestling doesn't make sense a lot of the time, and so that was kind of how I read it. Was he was able to like he got to the ropes and was like able to like shift a little bit, and so that kind of threw Jericho off. Maybe
the other thing I was not a big fan of was Kenny blading himself at some point. Yeah, Red Shoes very obviously handed him something, and then Kenny was like cutting his own head for a little bit. And I think
that's
it's
on the
just
cameras for having him in frame.
Yeah, but you know, it's like I don't know. It's just I think I didn't watch wrestling in a time where that was popular, and so I get that because it's not done anymore, it's exciting and cool and stuff, but it's just I don't like the blood
that much. It doesn't freak me out, so when it happens by mistake, I don't get like, ugh, but when they do it on purpose, it's like you can use a blood packet. Like there's ways to fake it and make it look like not believable, but like as believable as that, where you could clearly see him gigging himself. Like you could just like pop a blood packet and or something like that, you know, like I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like for me too, like it's when somebody gets like their lip busted open or they're bleeding for whatever actual reason, that doesn't bother me as much as him like cutting his own head. It's just like, I don't know.
He looked like New Jack. Also they set up that really good chair spot where Jericho like set up the chair in the corner, and then like you kind of forget about it because like they get away from that and they're doing stuff, and then suddenly I think Kenny's running across and he's gonna hit Jericho, and Jericho like steps out of the way and throws him into the chair.
There was
they did.
Sorry, I was gonna say there was the table thing too, wasn't there, that they set up earlier?
Yes, they set up the table, and then Kenny hits Chris and he like falls backwards off through the table. Those tables look a lot sturdier than the ones WWE uses. I was like, that looks like it could hurt, but they're all like gimmicked and whatnot. Any other thoughts on this match?
I like the ending a lot.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, you could continue.
No, I think like it's the common theme throughout the night that was really, or throughout the show. I didn't watch it at night, but throughout the show was like I like the wrestling part of wrestling the most, like the in-ring stuff, but I also have a lot of affection for the goofy, like I love it. My favorite parts of recent WrestleManias have been the parts where some big wrestler comes out and like talks on a microphone for 10 minutes, because I think that like that stuff is really entertaining too. And it was weird that there wasn't much of that throughout this show for me, because as being like new to this promotion, and I felt like it got even weirder when that wasn't much of a thing in this match. That felt like the most WWE thing that they had done, and I kind of was like, man, is there any like, does all the drama happen on like press conference stuff outside of the paper? Like what? I don't understand really how the storylines develop yet, because it seemed like there were some bits in this one that had it, but there wasn't a lot of like, we're going to talk a little bit and set up storylines.
So it's a lot more in-ring action than it is.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more like actual rivalries rather than you're fired, and if you want your job back, you have to beat me, you know.
And I like that soap opera bullshit a lot. It's kind of disappointing to me to not see it, even though I think that's a preference thing. It's not like critical of it.
I would say that there is more talking in most other shows.
Gotcha. Okay.
But because this is, you know, also the next day's show is New Year's Dash, where it kind of sets up a lot of the stuff that's going to happen throughout the year, but it's also a much more lighthearted, like everybody's tired. They did Wrestle Kingdom the night before, and so there's a lot more talking in that one, I would say too. Okay. And then there's also the press stuff that happens a lot too.
Yeah, it's just I don't know how to. I don't want to take too much time on this either, but it's an interesting question of someone who now has an interest in maybe grabbing a subscription and checking it out more. Is like, I want those storylines, but then there's the language barrier issue that we talked about earlier, where I don't know how much is conveyed very well given that, and they don't really talk much in the ring, but do I want them to, because I can't understand a lot of the stuff that's said anyway. I don't know. There's a lot of like stumbling blocks for me that are hard to get over, but the in-ring action is really good. and I'd like to figure out how to get over them to be able to appreciate it.
I almost went to this show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, this will kind of reveal my hand for the conclusion that we'll get to, but it was the only match of the night I actually enjoyed. Because it had lulls, it had moments that were just kind of boring, but
It was two Canadians going at it.
yeah, we had a lot of talk about Winnipeg during this match, but it was the only one that seemed like, for me at least, that there was forethought that went into it. Like talking about setting up the chair, setting up the table, and like the two dudes are obviously talking to each other and setting things up and setting up something that's interesting. So it was the one that had the most narrative in it, I guess, for me. And it also had the most dumb shit. So yeah, in the end, it was like the one of the night that I kind of took away as being kind of cool.
I'm always in for dumb shit. Like when
Same.
Dean Ambrose tried to for real cut Brock Lesnar in half
Oh my
with the
God.
chainsaw.
Yes,
But
that was
that-
so good.
That-
Dean
like, that
Ambrose
match was
happens to be
awful, but it could have been so good.
he happens to be my
promise.
favorite current favorite WWE superstar, so that was especially great for me.
Very disappointing in the end.
Yeah.
So that brings us. Speaking of disappointing, IWGP Heavyweight Championship Kazuchika Okada versus Tetsuya Naito. Speaking of disappointing, the Rainmaker. I thought it was gonna be like way cool. It's just like a lariat,
Yeah.
but he pulls
Yeah,
like,
it's hilarious.
That was
Hilarious.
that. I was incredibly disappointed by that.
I
Like, at the
don't
end-
like it.
At the end, he made it look pretty good, but when he first said it, I was like, wait, that's the Rainmaker? Because I've heard about Okada, I've heard about the Rainmaker, so I figured like that it would be like pretty. I liked his pants,
I hate his pants.
and I liked his pants, and I wanted him to win, so I was like, I was down.
I wanted Naito to win so bad, and I thought he was going to. This was the one surprise for me. I thought this match was all over the place. Like there were moments of it that I thought were awesome, and then there were other moments where I was like, "How the fuck is this still going on?"
Yeah. Yeah.
They had an
I
hour
don't think
time
I don't think wrestling matches should go 36 minutes.
That's fair. They normally don't. It's really just Wrestle Kingdom. And I will say though, it's every Wrestle Kingdom is like that though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Rainmaker is probably the least protected of the big finishers for most of the big wrestlers. People kick out of the Rainmaker all the time. He usually has to hit.
this one like 6 times.
Yeah, that's normal, honestly. Like it's
I was
Yeah, I don't
trying to make sense of Naito's finisher. It looked like he was going into like a spinning armbar, but then it's like a DDT.
yeah, it's called the Destino. It's according to his Wikipedia page, it is a somersault reverse DDT. But what he does is he like grabs the other guy's arm, reaches his arm through that arm, grabs their head, and then like muscles himself up, like does like an extreme crunch, like muscles himself up, and then DDTs them.
Yeah,
so it's like the other guy's doing all the work.
I don't know.
It's a weird one.
I felt like in this match, like again, these are guys I don't know anything about. Naito is the person that like I don't mean to like. I'm probably gonna sub for a couple months of New Japan and watch stuff because of him. Like he seems fucking awesome. Like I want to watch that guy wrestle a shit ton more. And I felt like Okada was so much less interesting. And I was like, why did he lose? He was so cool.
So Naito is kind of like super over with the fans. Like he's really, really popular with the fans. And you know, and it's kind of one of those things where I thought that this was kind of where Okada was finally going to lose. He's been the champion for like 600 days or something like that. Like I thought this was going to be the one.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just wasn't, and I was surprised by that. I thought this was going to be the time, but it wasn't. So, you know.
Did he take the belt off Nakamura, or who did he get the belt off of?
He took it off of who did he take it off of? No, he took it off of Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Okay.
Tanahashi was like the previous like he was the guy, and now it's Okada.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like another one of those matches, and I don't particularly like matches like this. It seemed like Naito was working his ass off, and Okada was kind of like wrestling to wrestle. He wasn't really like trying to wow anyone. It was more like he was just sort of Naito's like training partner or something. And that can work if the right person wins it and comes away with a big belt. But I felt like by Okada winning, I was like, he didn't fucking like.
It's like Randy Orton wrestling when he knows he's gonna lose.
Yeah, right. Totally. So when he didn't, it was like Randy Orton wrestling when he knows he's gonna lose and then winning. Like that's like the worst thing that could happen in a WWE match. And I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of my guess about how they're going to take the belt off of Okada. Is he's been like last year he was working super hard, kind of the same way that you saw Naito, like really giving it his all. You know, he got a 6-star match with Kenny. It was a big deal. And I would say that I think that that's actually how they're going to take the belt from Okada, because he's been progressively getting more goofy. Like he screamed Scooby Dooby Doo and jumped, did like a frog splash on Ibushi.
He did do that.
The other day he had Zack Sabre Jr. in, I forgot what kind of hold it was, something, and he was like petting his hair. He's getting really goofy in a way that he hasn't been goofy before. And so I think what's going to happen is, right now he's beaten like every record and like, you know, days held with the belt, and, you know, just whatever. The only one that he doesn't have is title defenses, which Tanahashi has the record for title defenses. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to rematch that. He's got one more title defense before he gets to that one. And I think he's going to lose it to Tanahashi. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But he's definitely acting goofy.
Let me ask you, like, I don't, because it's an interesting question for me, and I want to dive into it more now, because I overall enjoyed it a lot. So like in the WWE, it's all about like what creative wants. Like they don't fucking give a shit what fans care about, really. I mean, they claim they do, and sometimes they make the right move, but it's just what their creative thinks is going to sell. And there's not a lot of like, from what I understand, listening to podcasts, there's some degree of politics between the wrestlers and the company as to what you get, but it's really basically if you do what the company says long enough, eventually you'll get your shot. Do you know, like in New Japan, it seems like maybe this is me being like stupid culturally, but I feel like given the climate in Japan, and Andre, maybe you can speak to this too, like I feel like there's more to the way that they throw belts around. Like WWE will just like do something really dumb because fucking who cares, because it's what creative wants. So I wonder if like because of Japanese culture, if they're more careful with the way they write at least the transfer of titles.
So
I wonder if they're being, I don't know. I wonder if like WWE being more aggressive about acquiring talent has changed anything, because like I mean they took out AJ Styles and Nakamura from them at like the same time,
Finn Balor
and like Asuka and stuff like that. So like I wonder if that has like given them like, oh, okay, if we want to keep our big guys, maybe we need to like build people up more using like, you know, give more chances, things like that. But I can't say.
Yeah, I don't know how the money works out for them either. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, the company was bought, like New Japan was bought like maybe in 2003 or so, and the people who bought it, they make like those video games that you see. Andre, you probably know better than anybody else. In the arcades, those ones with like cards. Like the machines that have like weird cards. They're called like Bushi Road. It's just like a weird like anime video game. Like they make a lot of visual novels.
They have like Pokemon games and Dragon Ball games.
So I would say since that has happened, they're much more willing to do weird shit and like try out new things and stick with stuff for a long time if they think it might pay out in the end. Geto, he's the guy who came out with Okada. He's one of the bookers. The other one's Jado, who we didn't see. But those two guys I trust to book pretty much anything, because they seem to figure out, they seem to get it. I know the wrestlers themselves have a lot more creative freedom than they do in the WWE. Like it's kind of like just do what you want. This person's gonna win though, and especially with the Young Lions is pretty much where you see the biggest thing. They never win matches unless they're facing other Young Lions, and that's just that's part of them building up to the respect level where they are allowed to win. But with the championships, I would say they've been willing to do some weird stuff. Like Jay White has a belt now, and I didn't think he would have the belt. He actually took it from Kenny Omega. He has the United States Championship belt now.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're willing to do some weird stuff. It's just kind of like, it depends. I guess some things are willing to be a little more, and also it makes sense for them to give Jay White the belt to get it off of Kenny because of the beef that Kenny has going on with the Bullet Club. He's reunited with Ibushi. He's doing tag teams now instead of singles, and I think they're willing to do more stuff and try new things, but it's not necessarily like, okay, this guy earned it more because he's been around longer. Old guys lose all the time.
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
also doubt that it's like one guy in his 70s, slightly insane, making all the creative decisions.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully now in WWE, that's less true than it has been in the past. Although it still is, if Vince wants something, it happens.
Yeah.
He participates less, but if he wants something, it happens.
Yeah.
So
and that's
fun.
why
Oh, sorry.
That's why I like NXT so much, is that Triple H does that, not Vince.
So quick side note, when you said that Bushiroad owned them, I was like, how the fuck do I know? I know this company. I know this company. Bushiroad makes a trading card game called Weeb Schwartz that I got super deep into because it's like got all these different anime properties, including like Attack on Titan and I think Sword Art Online. The Persona 3 and 4 characters have sets based on them.
Weird.
And so it's pretty interesting that they own New Japan.
We need to wrap this up. We're almost at 3 hours.
I know. We got to finish, but that's where I heard them.
They also do the Love Live rhythm game that I got really into for a while. So I was like, that name sounds very familiar. And then that's because why.
Yep.
Okay, I had like 2 more questions for you guys. What do you guys think of Naito's taunt where he's like holding his eye open? Apparently he went to Mexico for a while, and that was kind of his thing because the fans were making fun of him for having small eyes because he's Japanese.
I missed it.
And yeah, he's always like holding his eye open and got his fist up because the fist thing is Los Ingobernables, which is his faction.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't really read into it too much. That's interesting.
Yeah, I just thought it was cute. I always like it. And I was gonna ask what you guys thought about Okada's bell bottoms, his Corm bell bottoms.
I loved his pants. I told you.
Yeah,
I was in his pants.
I hate them.
Pants of the year.
And the other thing too is I know you two especially have been really watched a lot of WWE. What do you think of the camera work? I've like a lot of the reason I don't like the WWE is that they cut the camera constantly, and I feel like I can never see what's happening.
They do it less now, but for a while they still do it too much. They were on this thing of like zooming in every time there was a punch to try to hide the fact that there wasn't a real hit. When it's like you just shoot it from a different angle, you don't have to do that, and then no one gets motion sick. So yeah. I like the camera work in this more than in most WWE stuff.
Yeah, I like the camera stuff. I like the production generally of WWE stuff, but the camera work is
Totally.
I was also curious on your opinion about so New Japan, the wrestlers for New Japan work a much harder style. They hit each other a lot harder. They take much harder bumps than the WWE does, but they get injured far less often because they work like maybe 40, 50 matches a year, as opposed to WWE wrestlers who work like about 150 matches a year and are probably really tired from traveling constantly and whatnot. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Keep them healthy. They would do better. WWE would do better to utilize more of their talent by giving more of their people time off.
Yep. Yeah. And WWE would do better by. I mean, WWE has 6 weekly shows, right? That's still around that number.
I think.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT, main event, Superstars, and
main event and
205.
superstars are still are just like dark matches though.
are they? I thought for a while they were
they,
actually.
they film them before SmackDown or Raw, and then 205 Live. But so
but it's still the same
a lot of matches. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's still the number of matches. There's enough content for the shows, I guess. I mean, even though they're not separate shows, and they do live events too that they don't even film.
Yeah.
So like the amount of wrestling that they put out is so much more than is necessary for any like because
no one can keep up with it all.
No.
Unless
Yeah,
it is your job to keep up with it.
I'm like, how do
No.
you watch all that wrestling? Like,
the storylines are so simple that you
Interesting.
watch a video package before the major pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And like
Mm.
if I'm bored, I'll throw on SmackDown or something.
You read recaps, find out what's good. Because Raw is 3 fucking hours.
Yeah.
SmackDown is 2.
Yep.
That's 5 hours. Then you got NXT, which is an hour. 205 Live, which is probably also an hour.
Yep.
Main event.
I feel bad
main
for the
event
guys
and
on 205.
superstars. You don't want to watch main
No.
event or superstars.
They're terrible. Nobody watches them. Which is like, why are they even on then? You know, like they could do 2 hours of wrestling a week and shoot better quality matches, and their talent would be a lot happier and more comfortable.
Yeah. If there's matches where it's like nobody watches it because it's terrible, it's like maybe you don't need that.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Yes. So that is going to do it for us. I am making an executive decision right now to end this podcast. We are approaching 3 hours, or have exceeded 3 hours. So Alex, you can Google him. Alex Bolinas. You can Google him. I'm going to save him the time. Writer Serenity. How do you spell that, Allison?
Okay, it's WRITERSERENYTY. You can also search the character from The Good Place, Rhonda Mumps, and you'll probably find me because that's part of my display name on Twitter.
Demi, I don't want to say his last name because I can't. One of the writers for The Good Place does a cool podcast called Punch Up the Jam. You should all listen to it. Erica.
He's no longer writing for The Good Place, but that's sad because
is he
I love
not?
him.
He's so good. Still listen to Punch Up the Jam. Erica.
Yes. My podcast, Tempered Expectations. It's about wrestling and video games sometimes.
Is it 3 hours long?
It's not.
Okay. That's
Usually
about the best.
an hour. Sometimes 2 tops.
That is the best endorsement we can give right now. Zupa Dupa on Twitch, yes?
Yes.
You spell that in a way. Multiple X's, XX42069XX. I think.
Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Weird. That's my Twitter handle.
Pat is at JesterPC on Twitch and Twitter, right?
Correct. Yes.
And I am at Coolslaw on the Twitter, and Cray_Dre on Instagram. If you are interested in following me, Sam
SGCH.
SGCH. Yeah. You can find him. Google us, I guess. So like, comment, subscribe. I guess. Yeah, you can comment. We're on YouTube.
Fix.space. Yeah.
Fix.space. That is the place. Fix.space is the place.
But
space is the place.
To bring it back one little second for the wrestling.
Oh yeah.
I just have one specific question for Allison.
Yes.
Would you continue watching wrestling?
Probably not. Like, I'm really, I was intrigued by a lot of the whole like concept of it being like, I don't know, like all the like weird background stuff, like about like young lions and moving up and here's this team. It like it vaguely reminded me of some of the J-pop stuff I follow, which is kind of weird and I didn't expect it, because like there's a lot of especially in like the girl groups that I follow, there's a lot of stuff about like trainees when they're going to move up to the main group, like inner group, oh no, they're mixed up the group or they're disbanding this group. So there's like a lot of that kind of like behind the scenes drama that's really entertaining, but I just can't see myself continuing to watch it. Like I'll gladly listen to Erica talk about it, but that's probably
yeah.
Kenny Omega's in the fortune cookie video.
Oh, is that him?
Yeah.
That's Kenny
Oh
Omega.
my god, I was in the fan version of that got played places. So fun.
Really, that's so cool.
Yeah, I can share it with you.
Please do.
Similar thoughts from you, Alex. Not really looking to watch WrestleMania next weekend.
I would say I have zero interest in ever watching
all-
wrestling again.
all-
I would go so far as to say I actively hated it. Like, I can definitely see the skill in it, and I think I can
Yeah.
see why people are so passionate about it. But it was just so insubstantial to me that I had zero interest in ever watching it again.
I would recommend the video I linked in the chat, which is Kenny Omega versus a 9-year-old girl.
I've seen that,
Yeah.
which was adorable, but
I
still.
sent it to Alex at some point.
That and Ibushi versus Yoshihiko from their time in DDT, Dramatic Dream Theater Wrestling, I believe,
Dream
which is
Theater.
a comedy wrestling promotion that
That's where the
at
golden
one,
one is.
Yeah.
at one point a ladder held the 24/7 Hardcore Championship.
Yeah.
It is sadly not the members of Dream Theater Wrestling.
That would have been seeing John Petrucci wrestling would have made me very happy. But because he's enormous. Anyways, I don't know. I get it. I think the personalities are really cool, and I think the gimmicks they come up with are really cool. And like I said, they're very skilled. But yeah, no interest.
It's not an acquired taste. It's something that you watch for 10 minutes and then you'll know. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Good to know, because I appreciate hearing about it, but I don't think that it didn't grab me immediately. So
Yeah. But
That's fair.
probably not for me.
I will 100% listen to Erica talk about it forever, and I'm glad that I at least had the experience to have formed an opinion.
and if we want to start a wrestling, Erica, we could start a New Japan Wrestling podcast, as you explained to me how to get over the hurdles I mentioned earlier.
Hell yes. You want to watch? There's a pay-per-view tomorrow. I will watch it with you. I am 100% serious.
All right, I'm gonna check it out.
Wait, there's a pay-per-view tomorrow. It's a Monday. What?
Yeah, they have them like any day of the week.
Wait.
Anyway,
is it in America? Whatever.
Anyway.
Okay.
Oh,
I mean, they just did one in LA. I don't know.
yeah. So Andre,
okay.
what did you think? You think you're gonna ever watch New Japan again?
I watch. I've like jumped in and I've watched highlights. Like I've watched Omega versus Nakamura. I think I watched AJ versus Nakamura. But like I said, if I don't know who the people are already, I'm not that interested. If I hear like amazing things, then I'll go back. But I'm not really looking to pay for the New Japan things. So that just kind of like I want to go to a show at some point when I can get some time and I can go to like Osaka, because that's like probably the closest place that I can go to a show. So yeah, like I'm not opposed to wrestling, but it's like when I'm mainly more interested in WWE just because I prefer that style, because it gets so stupid. It's like so campy that I would love if it wasn't so bad and there wasn't so much of it. But yeah, I still keep up with it, like read recaps and whatnot, but I'm not like, oh yes, I need to follow all these characters now.
That's fair. And Pat, I'm gonna try to convince you that this is the way to go.
He is unemployed right now, right?
It's definitely something I would watch concurrently with like major WWE pay-per-views. But yeah, I thought it was really good.
That's good. I'm glad. Well, thank you everybody for watching 6 hours of wrestling and then talking about it with me for 3 hours.
It's a 10-hour project. Complete.
Yes.
It was a huge ask, and I really appreciate it.
A lot more time than I assumed that I would spend on wrestling, but
Yeah,
it's always interesting to see something that you're not normally exposed to.
This went much longer than I was anticipating. So
That's what she said.
Oh, nice. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing for her to say. So Alex Galinas, you can Google him. Allison.
We already did.
We already did
We went through the whole thing. I'm just gonna recap real quick.
All right, so let's talk about that first match, the Rumble, right?
Google cheeseburger.
You want me to do a whole spiel about J-pop? Because I
Jester
can do
Chiefs.
that right now.
Okay, we're ending this podcast. Goodbye.
Real balls.
All
Okay,
right.
wait, do we have a thing for
Bye.
next week? Right? No, nothing yet.
No.
Okay, we'll talk about it next
Just a
week.
regular
Yeah.
podcast. Just
Or
a
I
figure
regular
out.
meant
podcast.
next month. Whatever. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, later, nerds.
Later.
Bye.